everybody, and welcome back to the WaffleBran Podcast. Things are a little bit different today. If you couldn't
Hi guys,
tell,
how's it going?
we do have a special guest today. We got Gentlemanly here with us, but I think
Gentlemanlygamer here with us. It's going to be a really good podcast today.
Although I do feel off.
Now,
I do feel off, guys. It's something else feel off with you guys as well.
No, I've never felt better.
Never felt better.
Yeah,
All
I
right,
mean, I'm feeling pretty good. For anybody who's listening to the audio version of the podcast, just know that we all got some haircuts, right?
and body
Yeah.
shapements as well. And
Yeah.
downsized.
We've been exercising, got
I
some
mean,
haircuts.
I lost a little bit of weight, but
Plus-
yeah, no, I think I'm tucked in the
Yeah,
right place.
looking good,
I feel
man.
good.
Looking
Yeah,
good.
Thanks, man. Oh, you too.
Wow, there's
honestly.
just something so I don't know, regal and super.
Oh,
There he goes, and he wobbles on the ground. You.
Oh!
how long was that, Bran? How long was that? Do we time?
I don't know. I would love to time it. Well, welcome everybody once again. We'll get back to what we actually are in a second here while everyone finds their way. So give us 1 second to actually get back into view.
I feel like that episode of like there was an episode of like Buffy or Angel or something like that where they all just turned into puppets. And that's what I just feel like that's just what's happened here. I'm gonna take a seat.
Oh man! Ow!
Hello everyone. This is what I actually look like for those of you who are not aware. Yeah, you're all right there, Waffles. You took a nasty fall.
I think my chair's screwed up.
That was great. Your puppet fell out of the out of you, and then you came back as a real boy.
Puppet?
I mean, sorry.
Puppet?
Yes, sorry. Your mirror fell off.
Right. Yes.
I might just
I'm
leave
a
Captain
real
America.
boy
here, to
now.
be honest with you. I might just leave him like that. Kind of good.
I mean, it's pretty appropriate to the topic we're gonna do.
It is. It is. Poor Bran had to go through all of that for you, Waffles. Poor Bran.
Let me just make sure my mic is turned.
It
the
was
right
definitely
direction here.
entertaining. I
All
had
fixed and
a
everything.
huge setup and everything for it, so like, it's fantastic.
Oh man!
But last second idea, April Fool's today. So for those who do not know, if you were watching or if you're listening to this through audio, go check out the video. It is very entertaining, I feel, or just really awkward because none of us are moving at all in the forms that we were. So either way, I think you should.
I think we looked really good. Our haircuts really made us look special.
I think
either that.
Check it out.
Either that, or we look like the secret room from Jim Henson's workshop.
the puppets he was too scared to release.
Yeah, the forbidden puppets.
Regardless, hello everybody, and welcome to the WaffleBran Podcast. Like we said, we got Gentlemanly here, and we're going to be talking about a bunch of different things, probably, but more on comics, which is something that I am not very familiar with. However, there's one more thing I want to bring up because we were having so much fun with plushies. Waffles, I know you love your horror games, so I'm going to keep Vanny here so that every time you look over in my direction, you get scared by the FNAF stuff, and it haunts you of your FNAF.
Why do you have a FNAF plushie?
Don't worry about it.
Hold on. We're gonna put everything. We're gonna set everything aside for just 1 second. Why do you have a FNAF plushie, Bran?
Why question it?
I mean, that's a good question.
Why not? Why shouldn't I?
I mean,
I have no retort for that. I have zero like you're right. Why not?
Well,
I look forward to like halfway through the show, you getting like a flashlight or something and just like shining it just to make sure, or checking the doors on either side of you.
Yeah.
Confused.
But Vanny's gonna sit here.
God.
This is a nice little plushie I have. It is because of my work. If anyone's actually wondering, that's why. Also, if you see in the background, there is other plushies in the background there too. I that's part of my work, and they gave me samples. For those who do not know, I work for U2s, which is the little tag there, and this is one of the products. So
I did not know that, so thank you for informing, Bran.
I am the partnerships manager, so they sent me over some stuff, and it's been really cool. Which also includes the other one that was shown on earlier, but this one's cool because it's got a little magnet in it, and that's why it can sit on the on the mic stand. It's got a little pad here too, because we call it our shoulder rider, and it actually sits underneath your shoulder and can sit on your shoulder if you would want it to.
Oh my god!
But I like to have it on the mic stand right here because Waffles, it's gonna freak you out later. Anyways,
Bran, can I immediately suggest something to you?
Absolutely.
When the time does come eventually, when you do go and stay with Waffles, can I advise please taking that and just randomly placing it around his apartment, possibly on the fridge?
I'll place it around the hotel room because that's what we're
there you go.
No, here's what's gonna.
I'm not good with Five Nights at Freddy's.
Here's what will happen.
Scares the hell out of
me.
me.
This is what's gonna happen is that I'm gonna get there first into Niagara because we're planning to get now to Niagara. I'm just gonna place Vanny just somewhere in the room. Waffle's gonna walk in and just opening up something and just jump like hell.
Nice.
Sugar in the comments. I love FNAF. Yeah, I feel so awkward as a fully adult 34-year-old man walking around, and all these kids are they just see a FNAF stuff and they go, "Oh my gosh, it's my immediate reaction to FNAF and Five Nights at Freddy's is, oh god, the PTSD is coming back." But all these little 10-year-old children are just yeah, it's Freddy. I love Freddy. Freddy's horrible.
It's a horrible story as well.
I know.
It's not like a family-friendly game or anything like that. It's not like, oh
yeah,
here comes Woody. Yeah. No, it's like a horrible story. It's like a kid gets murdered at a restaurant. It's not good. It's not good at all. Oh,
but
dear.
still, some of those popular merchandise around right now is the Five Nights at Freddy's and Poppy Playtime.
Yes,
right? That one's all over the place, which is just crazy to me because
that seems terrifying. That game's looks absolutely terrible.
Yeah,
in a weird way, in a cartoonish way, because it's not actually it's not really that like a horror game kind of, but it's got that cartoonish feel, which is the weird thing.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the character, the character design is pretty much, I mean, it's the big blue-headed thing with the big smiley face, and if I had been a kid and that was around, there's no way in heck it would have been allowed to be on store shelf.
I know,
all the
right?
parents would have been crying like demons or whatever, and how dare you sell that to our children? But nowadays it's just hey, you want your Five Nights at Freddy's murderous animatronic plush doll? Sweet, here you go.
We established before the show began, I'm slightly older than you gentlemen, but I can't imagine when I was younger. I definitely didn't see a Freddy Krueger or Jason Voorhees plushie doll. I was like, oh, look at that! Mommy.
Look at that! I'm getting that.
Look at the
I mean, you would see
pillow.
action figures. To be fair, there would be action figures of even the darker horror movie stuff.
Well,
but
yeah, I guess so.
but they weren't targeted towards 10-year-old children and stuff like that. It wasn't it wasn't stab all the teenagers. Yeah.
But then it might just be that might be a regional thing, because we in the UK it was so when I was growing up, in my day when I was growing up,
trust me, you're not the first one to say that on the WaffleBran podcast.
Hey Waffles, how's it going?
But I remember Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was the craze, right? Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. When I was younger, that was.
Gentlemen, we have so much in common.
Well, thank you, sir.
Oh
it
my
was
God.
the tits, and in this.
To put it lightly, yes, it was the tits.
But what was amazing, and this is something you might not know as well, is that during that time we had really strict censorship rules in the UK, and one of the governing bodies of censorship for the government said that nunchucks were a very dangerous weapon that could very easily be adopted by children in any capacity, and they were deemed to not be seen on television or in any form. So nunchucks,
but the swords were okay.
Oh yeah, no, don't worry about that. That's fine. But yeah, so Michelangelo never used nunchucks in the UK.
And
what
also, did he use instead of nunchucks?
His hands. He was like, it was funny because Michelangelo was basically just like the poor turtle who didn't get a weapon. It's like it's like he's not good enough to have a weapon, and so just give him a pizza. He can use a pizza instead. It's fine. Don't worry about it. It's also why it was
just like
called
swinging salamis around. Like,
yeah. Well, that's what yeah. That's what they like. They did it kind of thing in. They took the piss out of it in the second movie because he swings salami in the second movie, and that was in direct
yeah. Oh
reference
yeah.
because he
Was
because of the
that a
nunchuck thing.
reference?
It was a reference.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah. And then it's called Hero
that's
Turtles in
amazing.
the UK as well. We weren't allowed ninjas at the time, so
No
they were not called.
ninjas.
They were Teenage Mutant Hero
So
Turtles.
so
That's
as long
such a
as the weaponry was medieval European in nature, they were okay with it. But
I mean,
medieval Asian
yes,
weaponry, that is forbidden.
exactly.
big no-no.
Yeah. Yeah, it has to be some kind of English conquering weaponry, or it is a
Right.
no-no. Yeah, you're right. Katanas,
That's
they were fine.
crazy.
Don't worry about that. They were all good. But yeah, no.
Well, that almost kind of fits into our topic a little bit because I mean Ninja Turtles started off as a comic book series, right?
It
I
did.
think they were like an old black and white comic, and it was a lot darker than the Ninja Turtles that we see today. It was much darker.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, we didn't practice this, but it's a good segue in because Turtles. Yes, it started as a comic book originally. It was actually a rip-off of Daredevil. I'm not even
Really?
joking. So one of the I can't remember. There was some kind of like claimant dispute between the original creator of Daredevil and Marvel, and then they went on to basically do part write Turtles and create Ninja Turtles, which is why the original Ninja Turtles, the comics, are really violent and really brutal.
Yeah, super
But
dark,
but
man.
there's a load of parallels in
Ooh.
it. There's a load of parallels in it from Daredevil. So if you notice in Daredevil, his main enemy is the hand, and in
Mhm.
Turtles, the main enemy is the foot. Um, and
Oh
then
my god. Brand has
so
no idea what we're
I
talking
have no
about
idea.
for
I'll preface
yeah,
this with this. I was not into comic books like ever, I should say. But more
Yeah.
specifically when I was younger,
Brand has
I was
no idea.
never
He's
into it. Like not like a bit. Like people would bring up like superheroes and stuff, and it's like, oh yeah, all this stuff, and I'm like, okay, sure, whatever. Like cool.
it's
And
like my
Yeah.
it was completely so. What they're talking about right now, I got no idea, no input on any of it. So I'll preface with that. We'll get into that a little bit later, probably. But I'll preface with that.
yeah.
If I look confused, it's because I am.
It's because Brand has
Well,
zero. He's learning all this new information
I'll
for
blow
the
your
first
mind with
time.
this one as well, Waffles. So like in Daredevil, his mentor is called Stick, and then in Turtles, Splinter.
Really? So was
Splinter off of
this
the stick. It's a
was
real
this
thing. Yeah,
like
it's a real connection. Yeah.
what was this like some competitor like they wanted to match Daredevil?
I don't know whether it
Was it
I don't know whether it was a competitor who wanted to match it, but there was a distinct time. It's like when because the the best thing the best thing about these disputes is the Howard the Duck example. So you know Howard the Duck, right?
Oh yeah. Oh, I know Howard the Duck.
So
Beautiful.
the
Bran doesn't, but Bran just
A duck.
imagine a duck, but like you think all that like cartoony stuff and
yeah.
like Disney and
Should I
Donald
look it
Duck
up?
is
Well,
super
should I look it up while
popular
you
and
guys are talking
stuff.
about it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's
look
like
up Howard the Duck
he
while he's
wears like a
talking
suit
about
and he
this.
smokes cigars.
Yeah, and he smokes cigars and it's a super adult like it's a super
Yeah,
adult character, but it's
it
really
is.
cartoony.
And it's like
It's
it's technically Marvel's like first movie as well, wasn't it? Like Howard the Duck the
yeah.
movie back in
Oh,
the day.
I've never
Yeah,
seen
very
it, but
very Who Framed Roger Rabbit vibes.
Yeah,
I
he's
do.
he's
I've
he
seen the
scores with
character
Sally
before.
Field.
That's right.
But the
Oh man.
what is awesome about that? So when we speak about like disputes and stuff like that, so Steve Gerber, who's the guy who created Howard the Duck, he had a falling out with Marvel, and he left Marvel under like a bit of a cloud. But Marvel basically pulled rank and said, "Well, we're keeping the rights to Howard the Duck. We're keeping Howard." So in the last book that they wrote for, or that Steve Gerber wrote for Howard the Duck, it was a clone saga thing, right?
Right.
Where
Okay.
basically Howard got cloned, and there was a bunch of
Of
different clones.
course, as
Yeah,
one
yeah.
does.
And in one of the panels of the thing, it's basically one of the protagonists leaving with another duck that is the real Howard the Duck, and basically saying, "Oh no, just leave that one with them. They'll never know the difference." And then he went and wrote another book. I can't remember what the name of it was. I'm gonna have to try and find the
An
name of it.
entirely different series.
But it was the same. It was Howard the Duck, but it was just under a different name.
But it was the clone.
No, it was the real Howard the Duck. So basically, he took the real.
Oh.
He wrote the real Howard the Duck
Oh.
out and left Marvel with the clone of him. So
Yeah,
like, there's this
you
whole
can-
panel where he's just like, "No, don't worry, they'll never know the difference." And then it's like he's
They'll
taking him
never know
over
the
into this other
difference.
universe.
That's a cool way to just like ditch your parent company and just make your own thing.
Here's a
Just be
big
like-
screw you. Just gonna take
Yeah.
this and
Basically, yeah.
go.
Yes,
Right.
yeah.
That's kind of amazing. I love that. I love that like idea of just like sticking it to the parent company and just be like, nah, we're gonna do our own thing, but you guys can have the clone.
Yes,
We're going
right.
to be the official one.
and they never knew the difference. So yeah, no, it was good.
Yeah,
It
and
was
they
good.
never know. You just change the name and everything, and it's like, no, this is a different character. It's the
Let me-
original character.
Let me try and find. I'll try and find that that clone thing because I don't know what the name of him was.
Yeah, so
Like something.
this is all interesting to me. Like, I to be fair, I think I've seen the Howard the Duck like images. I don't think I've ever watched it, but I've definitely seen stuff from it. Possibly.
good
Yeah,
thing,
it
though.
was
Because I
there's a
do
lot of
recognize it when I looked it up.
cameos.
I do recognize it, but
There's a lot of Howard the Duck cameos everywhere and stuff like that. I don't think he's really popular anymore.
Howard the Duck is
you
not
know,
popular, no. Not really.
Yeah, they're not. I'm not expecting a Howard the Duck movie to come out anytime soon. I think he was in the new Chip and Dale
Guardians.
movie. I think just briefly, wasn't he? Was he?
Was
in
he?
Oh, he was in Guardians of the Galaxy. I do
Yeah, he's
remember
in
that.
Guardians, Yeah.
Yeah, I do remember that. He was in the Guardians of the Galaxy movie.
He
Maybe
pops up.
I got that confused with the Chip and Dale movie.
Yeah, James
Uh,
Gunn like loves him, absolutely loves him as a character, but he realizes he's never going to be used like properly. So he
And
just
just throw him
keeps
wherever.
popping up in the universe
Yeah.
every now and again. But yeah, no, he's never going to be properly used. I can't find the name of this duck.
Okay, so speaking of which, so Bran, you have 0.
are we gonna go in this?
almost
Are-
0,
is-
practically 0 compared to a lot of.
is this what we're gonna
You
go
know,
into?
'cause-
Okay.
Yeah. Because most of, I would say, a pretty large population of the Western world is very familiar with
So,
comics. And
let's get the one thing straight. I'll get one thing straight. It's not that I don't know like comic books or I don't know who superheroes are or the things they can
What's a superhero?
could do. Or, some people might be like that.
I
no
love
clue.
Superman.
Oh my
Right.
God. Yeah, who's that behind you? It's America.
Why would a person call themselves a Batman? I don't understand.
This is Captain
See,
50 states behind this.
You have a basic. I mean, you obviously because of pop culture.
Pop
you
culture
know,
knowledge, yeah.
All the
Yeah, like
the
it's
basics.
not that like I'm completely like I don't know why I watched. I think it was with friends. I watched Guardians of the Galaxy, the original one. Like I've watched that. Or I think I saw with,
beautiful start to your comic book knowledge.
I
is
think
Guardians of the Galaxy.
I think what was the other one? There. Like,
I mean, that was one of the better ones. That was really.
It was.
Like there's been like a few that I've seen. I'm trying to think of what the other one was that I saw that I.
So you're
Again,
talking
this
about,
was
like,
like high
Marvel
school and stuff. Like I
movies?
can't remember, but
Here's a question for you then, Bran. Do you not know about them? And I'm talking specifically about the movies right now. Do you not know about them because of doesn't interest you, or it's kind of intimidating knowing where to start off because it's also interlinked now?
it's because I just don't have an interest. It's not that like I'm like, oh, it's so terrifying to get into. I don't know where. Suicide Squad. That was the other one I watched a while ago.
Oh,
that was yes.
wait. Which one?
The original one. The original.
Oh god, the original one. You
Yeah.
poor man. No wonder you don't like
So,
comic books.
The original one was the one that.
Your introduction, your movie
Not
introduction, to comic
not
books are
introduction.
Guardians of the Galaxy.
It's just the most recent
And
one I can
Suicide
remember.
Squad.
It's the most recent ones I can remember. It's not
that's-
introduction. It's just the
It's-
most recent ones I can remember because that was when I was like in my teenage years, and like I went out with friends and it's the new movie going on and I watched it, and then from there, like ever since, like I don't go to the movies in the first place. I don't enjoy watching movies in the first place either. Like I will say that as well. I'm not a movie person. Like I can't. I'm like. Who's surprise, the youth. I don't have a big enough attention span to go fucking watch a 2-hour-long movie. Whoop-de-doo. Like
I want to sit down in this movie theater for a whole 2 hours.
I would just like to point out at this time, neither me or Waffle said anything there. That was all on you.
I know it is, but it's like that's the thing. It's like the youth doesn't have an attention span. Yeah, okay, fair enough. Like I don't, and I know it. So like I don't enjoy, and I like there are some movies that I like, but someone goes ask me like, oh, what's your favorite movie in general? And I go, I don't know, because like nothing stands out. And nothing I go watch recently. Like there is not a lot that I can say that I could pick a random movie that I've seen 1,000 times in the past, like all the kids movies, all the Christmas movies you have going on, Home Alone and stuff like that. I've watched it. I just don't go back and watch it willingly.
Right.
Kids movies and Christmas movies is kind of different though, isn't it? Because it's like you kind of just like, for lack of a better word, born and raised on them. It's not, you know, you watch them, but it's kind of one of those just like the growing up experiences, you know.
Right. Just an ingrained part of your psyche almost,
Yeah,
like
exactly.
at that point, more than
yeah. It's like, you know, I watched Homeward Bound when I was growing up. I'm never gonna watch it again. Ever. But I remember it.
Yeah. I watched Barney the dinosaur growing up.
Teletubbies.
I watched that last week, but that's not the point.
Yeah. I mean, I watch it on a daily basis, but
I base my life on him, but yeah.
Oh my god. Oh no. Oh no. But yeah, no, I just
sense,
like I'm not a movie person in general, and not to say comics books are movies, because there's different versions because you have them on TV too. Sure. I just never got into it. I guess you could say, like when I was like younger, like I've said this before, like I have a really weird kind of stance on things, because like part of it is like a lot of what I was doing was sports, and a lot of it was gaming and everything. So I had that like in between, like I saw like what comic books are and how people got into it and what the enjoyments are. Like obviously like, Superman, Batman, like there was sometimes like when I did see those things and I've watched them, or like Lego Batman and stuff like that. Like I've played it. Like I have like an intro to it. Just was never interest me. I was like, and like people are like, oh yeah, figurines and everything. I'm like, no, don't care. And that still translates today. I don't really care for figurines or anything like that.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, to be fair.
Even anime stuff, I go see. I'm like, oh, that looks cool. Not gonna buy it there. I don't care enough to go buy it.
Yeah, it's really ironic though, because so Gentlemanly, you notoriously not a big anime fan.
I said that to Bran.
We had a conversation about it prior, but
yeah.
But Bran just recently got into anime and stuff like that, and he's watched a few of them and stuff like that, which is just
and I'm nowhere close to an expert or anything on it. I
right.
Like we had the anime conversation, and a lot of it was just going back to stuff that we've watched and stuff. That's the only input I can really produce from it, but.
I would just like to point out, I am exactly, so the way that Bran is about comics, I am exactly the same with anime. Like I have seen anime. Like it's not like I've never seen. This is the big thing that we go through with Zane. I have seen it. Like I've seen Akira. I've seen I've seen Bleach. Like I've seen types of anime. It's just not. It's not something that I'm like going like, oh my god, yeah, let's do this, boy. That kind of thing. It's more like okay.
So the only connection between this between us and like anything else is literally Waffles. Waffles is into everything apparently.
I'm into everything. I'm a very open-minded person. I love just I just love any kind of art, and I just love, if it's weird, I love it. If it's something that is outside
so
of
what we're saying is that both anime and comic books are weird.
That's
Yeah,
He's
I
he's
mean,
alienated his entire audience in
yeah,
one
pretty
sentence.
much. Just it's all weird, and I love it. It's not part of
What's your definition of weird? What makes it weird?
That's a good question.
Well, I mean, like
Because in a lot
I
of
grew up.
ways you could call it normal. Like
I was gonna say,
it's not like both sides can
Yeah,
be called normal.
it's
So
become
what?
that way. It's different than when I was a kid. When I was a kid,
yeah,
that stuff was not normal. That was that was very niche stuff that nerds. At the point I grew up, nerds were into like Dungeons and Dragons and comics
yeah.
and all that stuff and
And it used to be like a
anime.
dirty word as well, like nerd and geek used to
Yeah,
be like a derogatory word instead of now
yeah,
where it's kind
it
of like, oh
was
yeah, if you're a nerd, you're kind of
completely
cool.
different. Right. And nowadays it's a completely different, it's normalized. It is,
Yeah,
it's always ironic to me, the way that as we were growing up in the 90s, the comeback for most nerds, when people were like, haha, you like comic books, was nerds are gonna rule the world someday. You're gonna be in trouble in the future. And lo and behold, in the future,
it's
we got Marvel movies coming out. Disney pretty much owns the world. There,
well, it was. I mean, it was Batman. Like it was Batman that did it because like I mean,
yeah,
Superman had come out in like the '70s and stuff, and there was mainstream movie and whatnot. And but the comics have been around for 100 years or so. But like
right.
as far as like mainstream, hitting the collective consciousness and becoming this cool thing. I mean,
Yeah,
Batman
Batman was
'89,
really the
the Tim
Batman
Burton Batman
Forever. I
movie.
remember growing up in the
You keep
90s.
saying you did it on the thing.
I don't. Batman
Batman
Forever
Forever
was my
or
big.
Batman
Was
Returns?
my Batman Forever. I think was the one I watched that
That's the
really
one with
got
Jim
me
Carrey in
into
it.
comics and stuff. Yeah, with
That's the
Jim Carrey as the Riddler. Yes,
yes.
that's the one.
Okay,
I
that is
My
Forever.
parents
Yeah.
brought me to a drive-in movie theater,
Okay.
and I watched the whole Batman Forever movie at the drive-in, and I was hooked. I wanted to know everything about Batman, and I want to
Yeah.
know. I was just like, yes, I need to know more about this. Freaking Danny DeVito's Penguin. Uh,
That's
Arnold
so.
Schwarzenegger going, "Eyes to meet you."
Yeah. See but like Batman was what made it because at the same time as as comics started to get popular in movies, they started to become unpopular in print, and that it's famous that Marvel almost went
Right.
out of business in the '90s, and famously had to
Yeah.
sell off
I didn't
the
even.
movie rights
I
to
knew about
all
the
these.
Hulk. The Hulk
Yeah,
was always popular.
so they had to
Um,
so basically they sold off the rights to Spider-Man, to X-Men, Daredevil,
Spider-Man. Yeah. X-Men.
Ghost Rider, all these other characters that the cinematic rights to them were all sold off to different movie studios in order to stop Marvel from going bankrupt.
Really.
Which is why it was such a huge problem when they
Yeah. I
got their
will
own
say
studio
my.
trying to get the characters back.
Yeah, my big introduction to comic books wasn't actual comic books. It was
Yeah,
all the TV. It was the cartoons. It was Spider-Man cartoons,
same.
Spider-Man cartoons, the Batman cartoons, and the X-Men cartoons.
Yeah.
Those were the three that
Yep.
like really, were super popular, really got me as a kid. I would watch the Spider-Man cartoons, which were,
I loved
I
it.
mean, it's really funny looking back at Spider-Man. They're all memes now. Like you watch old Spider-Man cartoon clips, and it's just all memes of
It
like
is. It's just
Peter Parker
weird.
just abandoning a kid somewhere in a web or something.
Yeah, it's just weird, like the weird, like 'cause the one I think it's the same one that we're talking about. Waffles was in like the early '90s, where they had like
Hmm.
weird. They spliced in like weird CGI as well, so you get
Yeah.
like these shots of like this like animated smoothness where it's just going from one to the other, and then like really jarring CGI just like shoved
Hmm.
in there of like
That
a big monster
old
or something. It's like,
school, just
wait, what?
that when
Like,
computers were just starting to become a thing, and they
yeah,
just like, yeah, we
look
could
at how
probably
cool
use
we are.
computer here. Yeah.
But
But
yeah,
yeah,
no, yeah, I mean, Batman is like I would, as far as comics are concerned, like I would, I consider myself like quite well read as far as Batman's concerned. Like I know a lot of the Batman
mhm.
stories, and Green Lantern as well. I'm a huge Green Lantern fan as well.
Okay.
And it's weird. I tend to skew more towards DC comics than I do Marvel, but then it's just the way
It's
it
very
is.
opposite to most of the mainstream culture where they're
Well,
like,
movies, I prefer Marvel Studios currently,
well, yeah.
but like comic books, I prefer DC. It's weird. I'm a strange boy in my mind.
I mean, so Bran, do you know who Green Lantern is?
So I
Do you
know
any
people,
of
like you
the-
say most people, and I'll know what you're talking about.
Well, Green Lantern's not very popular. Green Lantern, I
Well,
will
that's what I'm
say,
saying.
is one of the
It's like
worst.
I'm not like so educated that I don't know who people are, or can at least picture who they are.
Okay.
I might not know exactly what they can do and stuff like that, or their story, but I can picture them and be like, all right, I know kind of who
You've
you're talking.
seen just images of the popular characters.
Yeah, well, like characters in general. Like I know most of them. I like you say them. I might not be able to tell you. If you show me a picture, I might not be able to exactly tell you who they were. But
Right.
saying their name, I can kind of get an idea or know who they are because I've seen Marvel and DC stuff that like enough
Yeah.
where I can get.
I almost just want to
gather
look
stuff.
up on the internet like random DC or Marvel
Okay,
characters.
if you do that, you
and
might-
tell them to
Lobo.
Bran
You-
and see if he can guess what their powers are.
We did this. We did the. Yeah, we did this thing on.
Something else that'll have to be done later on, maybe.
Yeah, we did this thing the other day on my podcast. The cheap
Oh
plug
yeah,
there
but
you go.
Yeah, you
I
should
don't know if
shout-
we
should shout
talked
that
about
out, yeah.
this.
No, it's
Gentlemanly
do it
Gamer.
at the end. It's fine. Don't worry about it.
No, this is a good plug. This is a good segue.
Plug like
into the
Waffles.
plug.
Waffles plug it.
Right, you go for it.
For Gentlemanly Gamer, just recently I was on your podcast, the Undisputed Nerds podcast, which was an amazing time. We talked about
It was a good time.
sequels to movies, whether or not they deserved sequels that came out to movies, and whether or not they had deserved to be made or not.
No,
I
it
think
was it was upcoming sequels that you didn't know
upcoming
about.
sequels.
That do they deserve to be out or not? That wasn't the
Right,
full
that's what
title.
it was.
I'm ad-libbing that title quite a bit, but yeah, it's weird. Like Gladiator 2, does it need to exist? I don't think so. But yeah, no, we did this thing yesterday. I was just talking about like quizzing Bran on like heroes and stuff like that. We ran this thing yesterday where we did the Nerds versus AI, and Zane found an AI program that basically when you type in a superhero name, it'll give you 5 results of other heroes that can beat it and why. And it's the weirdest
That's
thing. It's
amazing.
like, you type in Wolverine and it's basically it just gave up and just gave us all the generic answers of like Superman because he's really strong. I'm like, come on, AI,
Superman should
come
be
on,
him.
Because he's really strong.
come on, give us something good. But I wanted to ask you, Bran. So you said you're a gamer. So does that mean that you kind of shy away from superhero computer games as well, or do you play superhero computer games, and have you played superhero computer games?
No, not really. Like I said, like when I was younger, like when you had like on like my PS3, like I'd like Lego Batman and stuff like that, like things that like
Okay.
kids would play. Like I did that with my sister sometimes. But like
Right.
as I've gotten older, it's just like there's no appeal to me. I don't have an appeal to it. Like part of it's just like there's some of the gameplay is just not interested to me. Like sometimes I've watched it on YouTube, but it's just like I've never thought once like all the Spider-Man games and everything that's come out. Like I've never seen it big. Watch a YouTube video and go like, yeah, I want to go get that. I'm like, oh, it looks cool, but I've never like once been like, yeah, I want to go get that. It's just it looks
Okay.
cool, but I don't care enough about superheroes or anything like that or any comic book stuff to go, yeah, I'm gonna spend my money on it.
Fair enough.
Fair enough.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, because like that's like, I mean, that's kind of the tipping point. I think for me was for like I watched like like as I was the same as Waffles, so like watching cartoons, and then I watched some of the Batman stuff, and then when I was like young, I bought Spider-Man on the PlayStation. Like the very first Spider-Man on like in like 97 on the PlayStation, and it was awesome. And it started to get me more into the lore and like understanding of what happens
Yep.
and the characters and stuff like that. Like I love Venom and Carnage. Like they were
Oh
cool growing
man,
up.
I would play the Super Nintendo games. the Super Nintendo Spider-Man games just made me love
There you
Spider-Man.
go.
I was just like, my friend would always pick Venom, and I'm like, no, I don't want to be Venom. No, I don't want to be
Yeah.
shitty Spider-Man.
And then it's like it's amazing because you see like the progression of that over the years as well, where it's like
Yeah.
some of the most popular games nowadays are literally superhero games. I mean, the
Mhm.
Batman Arkham series is
Yeah,
incredible,
very,
like
very
absolutely
cool.
incredible.
Love that series. Yeah.
And as Bran mentioned, Spider-Man and stuff like that. But yeah, no, I can't really remember. Like I think reading comics became an excuse for me as to not read proper books because my dad
Fair enough.
my dad was an English teacher, or was an English teacher before he retired, and like there was a lot of pressure on there's a lot of kind of like peer pressure from your parents,
Right.
and especially from my dad, who was just kind of like, oh, you should be reading this stuff, and then the compromise was just like, yeah, sure, I'll read, and then
Oh,
I'll pick up a Batman comic or something, and it's like, it's technically reading.
I'm reading, Dad. I'm reading.
Fair,
Holds up
that's
Batman
fair.
comic. Yeah.
I learned it from you, Dad. I learned it from watching you.
See, I was kind of like the opposite a little bit because um I've barely read any comics whatsoever. Like I told you, my introduction was pretty much all 90s cartoons and stuff like that. That was my introduction to all the comic book stuff. I've had very little experience with comics. My dad also really wanted me to read, but
You weren't smart enough to go.
I-
I'll read comics. instead.
I didn't find the workaround with comics. I was like, yeah, sure, I'll read the Chronicles of Narnia. I'll read Jules Verne. Here you go, Dad. I'm reading.
Yeah, I mean that the Chronicles of Narnia and Jules Verne is a better level than Cow Splat Bam, from a Batman comic. So
Bam.
I think you're
Still
probably
love the old
onto.
Batman cartoon where it's like bam, and it just flat when some action thing happens, like it just put bam on the screen.
Oh, the
like,
Adam West show. Yeah.
yeah,
Back in the 60s one. Yeah.
yeah,
That was the stuff. Yeah.
just puts
But
bam on the screen because like it's hard to animate action scenes, so you just put bam and pow on the screen, and you don't have to animate anything.
I
It's the
still have a
best.
theory. I still have a theory of that, where it's like, because it was the 60s, all the actors in that were so out of their mind on like either kind of some kind of narcotic substances or just drunk that they couldn't really do the choreography very well, so they had to cover it up somehow. So it's just like, yeah, let's just put big signs up on the screen saying "Bam,"
Yeah.
that'll cover it all up. Nice, sorted. Nobody will know the difference. It's all good.
West Batman.
I'm starting
Still
to
some of the
like
best.
what I'm really realizing at this point is like, and this is nothing new to me. I'm not surprised by this. Is what I'm starting to realize at this point is that like I always thought like I had like when I was growing up I had this kind of a weird in between because it was just like, especially with gaming, because it was just like like you said, kind of back in the day, it was either you do one thing and you define either like nerd, geek, jock, whatever. And it's like it was still kind of true. Like growing up, I was like,
still kind of.
They're still kind of like that. And for me, I was in
fully transitioned at that point. Like
no,
it was still
And for me, I was in that weird kind of group. Like my entire group was like this. Basically, it was of my friends. We were like the weird people. Where like all of us did a little bit of everything, or like a part of our groups were all in these different kind of things, and we're all friends, and we were one group of friends. Like I was basically a gamer who was a jock, and that's kind of like what I'm starting to realize very, very much. Or I did know already, but kind of all these talks has always been like very defined as like everyone else has always gotten into this as a young age and kind of gotten into this thing, and I'm slowly realizing that it was like I was probably defined as a jock at that point. It's because I was into sports like a crap ton, and that kind of translates into me not like into anime or watching comics. Even though I did some gaming on the side, it was always sports. Like I could name off so many sports that I've played.
Yeah, I'm slowly realizing that you were the kind of kid who would have beaten me up in school and stolen my games.
I was way too introverted to do that. That I would have not done whatsoever. I was way too introverted to do that. I just enjoyed being outside or playing sports.
Yeah, you were one of the cool jocks who didn't care about the whole social structure thing. They just wanted to play sports.
Well, that was basically what it was, because that was my group. Literally, that was my group. Whereas like I had people who played baseball with me. I had people who played hockey with me.
There's different levels of jock.
Yeah.
Yes, there
cares?
Yeah,
The guys who are gonna give you
Yeah.
swirlies in the toilet. And
Yeah.
then
I knew
there's
those
the
people
dudes
too.
who just like don't care and they just want to play sports.
I was not friends with them, but
Yeah,
I knew
cool.
some of those people. Actually, I know someone who made it to pro hockey. Like when I was in elementary
Oh,
school, I knew,
wow.
like
Oh,
someone who's
nice.
made it play.
And
pro.
they were the swirlies in the toilet level.
They
They were the ones having hockey
they were
fights.
definitely up there. I don't want to say they would have actually done it, but definitely they were up there on that scale.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, no, that makes
Fear of
sense.
Jock. That's something that we need to create at some point. Where do you
I
sit
feel
on the
like
tier of Jock?
What tier of Jock are you?
was Marvel movies like a thing when you were in high school? Like when was your first like real introduction to
Not to
like,
carbon date you, Bran, but when were you in high
Yeah.
school?
When was I?
I'm just
I am 23. So when was high school? So
2000.
I graduated college in 2020. So that's
because I think like Hulk and
Oh, you
Iron
were-
Man
so
were
3
the
years,
two
6
big
years.
first ones, right?
You
So-
were born when I was 15. That makes me so sad. man. That makes me so sad. Do the maths out there, ladies and gentlemen. So you can work out how old I
Oh
am.
my god.
When was
wow.
the cinematic universe Hulk movie? That was
Iron
like,
Man was 2008.
So I think it's been
Yeah.
about 6 years since I graduated ish. It's about 6 years
Yeah,
since I
it would
graduated high
have
school.
been in
Okay.
full swing by the time.
So yeah,
you
yeah,
were in high
it
school.
was the thing. So you must have known at least.
Bran, you've never known a world without comic book movies.
Yes, you've let us.
Well, that's
introduce you
that's
to
the big
world.
thing. Is like a lot of the things that have grown up is like I've not known a world without it. Like I'm in that like part of it was in a transition period where it's like a lot of these things are becoming a lot more mainstream, like computer technology, phones, and all that stuff. And smartphones all became a lot more mainstream in the time. I've not known a life without it. But when I was young, none of this was the existence. It's the exact reason why I got into sports more than anything else is because that transition period where it's like I didn't have an iPad. I didn't have all this stuff when I was younger, especially when I was like really young and getting into elementary school and everything. And we talked about how the school system works in comparison between the UK or British and North America. We've done that already on a previous podcast. So if you want to listen to that, we've done that already with somebody else. So,
Oh yeah.
but
full disclosure, I'm married to an American, so I know the distinct difference between the two.
there we go.
It's
But yeah, so
great.
in that starting period, I didn't know all this technology stuff, and sports was the main thing. As I grew older, that's why I'm in that in between stages because it became more mainstream. Although I am still was past where I was always into more of the athletic stuff. But all this stuff became more mainstream. All these comics were on TV all the time. All the computer technology grew. Anime was now transitioning into North America. And I had friends who were into anime, and I had no fucking clue and no interest in it at the time. But I had a few friends who were really into it and also tried to get me into it. And I rejected it at the time. Look how that turned out. But like that, it's. I always think that I'm always in that transition period of whenever all this stuff became more mainstream. I've not known a life without it, but it started to become more mainstream when I was younger, and now it is.
There is an argument to say that we are currently in a comic book bubble as far as that is concerned, because as you said, like this kind of stuff wasn't around, 20 years ago. I mean, it was around. They had comic book movies and stuff like that, but it wasn't as like embedded in the culture as it was now. I mean, like Endgame is like the second highest grossing movie of all time, I believe, behind
Yeah.
Avatar.
Oh boy.
And don't get me started on that, Waffles.
All right, Waffles. So you got
Digging up some trauma there.
Yeah, and but like there is we're already seeing kind of a sort of backlash. Sorry, Bran, it's just going to bore the hell out of you, I'm sure. But like
that's
Phase
okay.
4 has already been kind of like, people have already complained about Phase 4 and the oversaturation of everything, and the fact that you have to watch so much just to keep up with one story. And it's now becoming a point. Yeah, I'm the same. I'm with you. I think it's ridiculous, and it's getting to the point now where it's like they, Disney and marketing companies, they push to what is hot, what is cool, until it's not hot and cool anymore.
I mean, that's just the nature of
the
media
beast
in general, right?
Yeah.
That's just
so
use it until you bleed that rock dry, and then move on to the next thing.
exactly.
So as people who are into this stuff, nowadays, clearly your question for it to me with having like, is it too much, and you don't know where to start, is quite a relevant question, because that means that there, like anime, there is probably a wide range of things, and clearly there are people who are going to be scared about getting into it and not knowing where to start. Where would you start? Where do you think someone should start, both of you, if they wanted to start trying to invest time into comics and things like that?
Okay, that's a difficult question, because are you talking about comic books or movies?
Let's go with movie. Let's go with movies first, because that's probably what most people would look into first.
So after that first question, I'm going to follow up with, is there a specific character that you're interested in seeing?
Let's say no. Let's say someone's just interested in trying to invest time into it. So you can do it. They don't have anyone that they're specifically into. I'm not even just saying for myself. I'm just saying completely as a general statement. Is like someone wants to kind of like start looking into comic books, but they're like you said, they're too scared to look into where they don't know where to start.
If somebody wants like a base introduction to like a comic book movie, Batman Begins is still an extremely good example of a mainstream comic book film that it is grounded enough in reality that it's not kind of like crazy, but it's also obviously Batman. You know, Batman's normally the gateway for most people because
Batman is the gateway drug to comics. Let's be real. Like
he's cool, and
I would say Batman Begins is a good I would say because people don't care about the origin of Batman or anything like they just want to see cool stuff.
What?
I'm talking about the casual audience, not you or me. Obviously, I love the origin of Batman.
All right. You're gonna say Dark Knight, aren't you? You're gonna say
I'm gonna say Dark Knight because that's the one all the casuals are gonna get.
Here we go. Here we go. This is what I wanted.
All he does is watch sports, all he does is anything. All he talks about is the Dark Knight and how cool that movie was.
That's great. The Dark Knight is. Let's not beat around the bush, and I'm not disagreeing. The Dark Knight is a masterpiece. However, if there's somebody who has no idea, absolutely no idea about comic books, and their first introduction is the Dark Knight, the first thing they're going to ask is, why is that bloke dressing up like a bat?
To be fair, I think everybody to a certain extent knows who Batman is at this point.
But that's the point. It's not supposed to be like that, is it? It's supposed to be like you have no idea.
If you were an alien coming to
I'm taking off my hoodie, Waffle.
And you had no idea about anything. You didn't know who Mario was. You didn't know who Sonic the Hedgehog was. You didn't know who Batman was.
I still wouldn't recommend them to watch
Batman
the Dark Knight
Begins
first.
Would be the starting place. But if you have any general idea that Batman is he's a vigilante who just goes around I'm a bat, and I mean Joker to a certain extent is also super popular culture, right? Everybody knows who the Joker is.
Yeah, I will concede to the idea that if you are looking for a quintessential mainstream movie that is a superhero movie, yes, The Dark Knight is probably the perfect example of that, because it hits all bases while still being somewhat nerdy. I mean, whether or not it's comic accurate is another, you can have that discussion until the cows come home.
I mean, Batman Begins, yes, is
I'm not saying Batman Begins is either. I'm not saying Batman Begins is comic accurate.
Well, if you want to begin in a his story and stuff like that, and you want to see the whole story and stuff like that, of course, Batman Begins. I remember I was in high school when that came out, and I had some very nerdy friends, and Batman Begins. I had a friend who came to school every day in a Batman, he had the Batman logo on his shirt and everything.
I thought you were gonna say outfit. I was like,
it's just the whole outfit.
It's really unfortunate.
No,
that's the way to get bullied.
He did once, but he had the Batman logo on his shirt and everything, and it was really funny because when Batman Begins first came out,
he really got into the character. He'd hang upside down from the ceiling when the lessons were on. It was really awesome.
It was really funny because everybody knew he was into Batman. Everybody knew he was into Batman. And so every person individually that he knew would go up and be like, hey, have you heard about the new Batman movie coming out? And he would just turn to them and go, yes, I know.
It's it's a talk. I think in today's culture as well, it is a good talking point. Like it's a good starter point if
Mhm.
if you can see someone like I mean, there are literally entire nerd shops devoted to
Oh yeah.
anime, comics, whatever you want, and
It's half the
you can
reason I
go in
love
there and
still
find
going to malls nowadays is because half
yeah
the mall shops are that.
yeah you
It's
can you find like-minded people. Buy the
yeah.
latest Funko. Um,
Right.
but no, I as far as kind of mainstream movies can. I mean, if you want to get into like Marvel-y side of things, Iron Man is still like the first Iron Man is still a great film to watch just because Robert
Yes,
Downey
that
Jr. is awesome.
I would also do. I would say that one too. Like I would agree
Um,
with Gentlemanly there. The first Iron Man, in Dark Knight, I feel like generally appeal to, um, more mainstream,
audiences, yeah.
general people who have no idea,
I think
anything about comics.
if you've got a history of some form of knowledge about some of the characters, I still stand by Captain America: Winter Soldier is like one of the best movies.
Yeah, that
Just
was a
in
good one. Yeah, I
it's
like Winter
just
Soldier.
so well done, man. Like, and it just like it's basically just a spy movie wrapped up in a Marvel package. And it just works really well. Like it works really, really well. Um
Yeah, that one
and I
was a little deep into the whole Marvel,
mythos.
mythos. Yeah, was a little like I feel like you might be a little lost on Winter
I
Soldier if you
agree.
have
Yeah, yeah.
no idea what Marvel is,
Yeah.
or
Ironically,
anything about the
Guardians is
cinematic
probably a really
universe.
good start a good place to start as well, ironically enough.
I love
But
that
it
Bran's
doesn't
first
always
2
work.
movies that he mentioned was Suicide Squad and Guardians of the
That's
Galaxy.
the most
2
recent I can
movies
remember.
which almost make fun of the Marvel universe and the DC
Well, like
universe.
two 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 ensemble cast movies of very different quality.
Yeah, those are
Like
completely like those
Welcome to not
are
being interested and dragged by your friends to go watch a movie.
well, it would have been really funny if you'd have gone to see The Suicide Squad, which is the second one, because then you literally would have seen,
oh,
yeah, which
that
was
one was
amazing. But
beautiful.
it would have been you would have seen Guardians of the Galaxy and The Suicide Squad, which are both by the same director, but for different comic companies.
Yeah,
So it would
it
have
was
been
really
you would have been
good.
like a James Gunn aficionado when it comes to comic book worlds. Brad, yes, yes, I've seen them both. Thank you. I know very well. I'm all good.
Okay, so what do I want to ask next? If I'm not too sure if this would be something you can answer, or I don't know, what would be the most if there is, what would be the most complicated story to get into? Whose story would be the most complicated to get into?
That's definitely up Gentlemanly's alley for sure.
Again,
That's
Movie.
movies or
Whose
movie?
complicated story would it be? Like, I guess
Oh
movie
my
story.
god.
that you would have
Background
no
lore.
idea what's going on.
Yeah, that would take the most time to start to
I
try
mean,
to get to.
generally the Endgame movies, the Avengers.
Well, yeah,
I
'cause
would.
you'd have
That's
had to-
what I immediately go towards. It's
Well,
like if you had no idea, you'd just be like, "What is happening?"
I think that's also because you kind of have to see, well, you have to see Infinity War to know what's going on. So if you just go
Well,
straight into
yeah.
Endgame, it's
If
like,
you just go
why is
straight
half
to
the universe
Endgame.
dead? What's going on?
Yeah.
Oh man, that is a really hard question to answer.
Yeah.
Uh,
I mean, okay. Excluding sequels to something that were like you would have had to see, like obviously to see Endgame you would have had to watch Infinity War, or to see Winter Soldier you should have probably watched Captain America first.
um,
Well, I
I,
just meant like in general, like not like there's not like I mean like a certain movie you'd have like as like a series together, like a person that like would take the most
Mhm.
time to go into and invest in their lore. Like, is there somebody that you would say that would like if you chose down this path, you'd be getting into a rabbit hole of crap that would take you like 2 years, 3 years to get by.
so, okay, so wow, it depends based on okay. So from that point of view, from a lore point of view, probably there are two that spring to mind. So the Inhumans, and the Eternals. So first of all, the Eternals, because the movie's
Oh boy, this
awful.
is the rabbit hole we're looking for.
It's really like the movie's really bad, but the Eternals are basically a group of sentient automatons created by otherworldly gods to keep the balance of order against other creations of theirs called deviants in order to protect a planet that is actually a birthing chamber for one of their kids.
Did you get that, Waffles? I didn't.
I forgot that movie came out. I'm gonna be totally honest. I forgot the Eternals actually like released.
Yeah, Waffles. It's that movie where the planet cracks in half because something's coming out of it, but then they just turn it into Marvel and everything's fine.
Yeah. Oh boy, I never watched that movie.
It's not good.
I had forgotten all about that movie. I'm gonna
And
be entirely honest.
with that, Bran, like that whole thing is like then there's other characters like Eros is a he's also an Eternal who's also the half brother of Thanos, who is also a Mad Titan. And see what your reaction there.
Well,
was
that's
like,
what I was looking for. That's exactly what I was looking for. Though was just who would
No, keep
who has this
going, keep
line
going.
of line and line after.
That's what it is. It's like that, and it's the same with the Inhumans because the Inhumans are the Inhumans are a breed of essentially they're like X-Men, right? They're like mutants, except they're not mutants. They're called Inhumans. And they have these special crazy powers that they get by reacting with these special crystals, the gas from these crystals, right? And
they're just
in-
getting high.
In reality, in the comics, they are a super weapon created by this alien race called the Kree. And they were supposed to be the ultimate weapon to use against the Skrulls in their never-ending war that they have. And then there is a whole line where they're technically Kree. They're basically Kree royal family as well.
I mean, they
So
touched on this a little bit in Guardians of the Galaxy. You should know all this stuff, Bran.
Yeah, exactly. I'm assuming you
this
know
should
all this,
all be
Brian.
familiar to
I'm
you.
assuming this is old news to you.
Totally remember everything about Guardians of the Galaxy. Totally, didn't forget everything I watched.
But I would argue, so I will say I'm not a fan of the Eternals. I am a fan of the Inhumans. I think the Inhumans has got a lot of like I will before you say anything, Waffles, I'm not a fan of the TV version of the Inhumans. I'm a fan of the Inhumans in the comic books. And I think they have a lot of weight to them and a lot of interesting stories that they can go with, but they're never utilized correctly on screen. But yeah, those are probably the two that I would say you're falling down the rabbit hole of craziness if you open up that. I mean, the X-Men are wild as well.
I mean,
Like,
even Disney kind of put out that movie and then just never referenced it ever again. They've just like
the Eternals.
Yeah, the Eternals. Yeah, they kind of just.
It was just a really bad movie. I'm sorry.
They just kind of want to burst that.
The thing
one
is,
under
right?
The rug.
The thing about all of this is it's the same with a lot of mediums. It's the same with with general movies. It's the same with wrestling. It's the same with computer games. It's like you can like what you like, and if you don't like comic book movies, that's fine. It's not for everyone. And also if you like, what I consider to be horse shit comic book movies, that's fine too. I just won't watch them, and that's I think that's the general appeal of all of this stuff. It's like there's such a broad spectrum now where it's like you can just like what you like. I don't particularly enjoy the Eternals, but I'm sure some people did.
There's probably some people who thought that movie was the jam. Like they were like, heck yeah, into that. Yeah, I mean
you can have your opinion even though it's wrong.
Yeah, you can have your wrong opinions.
Yeah, precisely. Yeah.
I feel like, definitely I will say because of the internet and stuff like that, the younger generation nowadays is a lot more open-minded than they were back in my day when I was growing up. You had what was popular and what was supposed to be popular, and that was it. There was no other opinions. The internet wasn't a big thing, and you just kind of you just rolled with whatever was. Ironically, one of the most popular things when I was growing up was Pokemon, which was like the start of
the revolution.
The revolution, pretty much. Almost kind of in a way, because that's when all this like weird niche Japanese stuff started to become like popular. It was like normal kids were into Pokemon cards and like, I've got a Charizard, and like that was just so weird to me.
Yeah,
You know, when I was growing up and stuff.
yeah.
Um, but nowadays, you know, it's just like you say anything and they will have heard of it or know of it in some way. It's just
I
there's
yeah,
just so much
it's
clashing of cultures.
it's a weird. I seriously think that social media has been one of the worst things for us as a species on the entire planet.
Boy, I
And
would have loved to have you on our social media discussion
I
podcast.
would love to be there.
Amazing.
I think I think the internet should have been used for like primarily for like what it a communication function also mixed with a the interlinking across countries is fantastic, and the fact that we can
Right.
do things like with gaming and with technology and stuff like that is awesome. But this social media aspect of like everyone shouting like this fits it with the comic book thing of like look at the Zack Snyder rubbish where
Everyone's
it's just like,
opinions should not be heard.
release the Snyder Cut, release the Snyder Cut. We want everything cancelled unless you release the Snyder Cut. It's like, and it's just like these mass,
Bran has no idea what you're talking about.
well,
But
we went,
yeah.
that comparison can work across any spectrum.
Mhm.
Like it's political, it's economical. It's
Yeah.
like you can literally tank things just by having an unpopular opinion on Twitter. Like that's ridiculous. Like that is a
Yeah.
ridiculous thing because all it is just people hearing like the art of debate in the world is gone. It's like you used to have a nice like back in my day, Waffles.
Back
You
in my day.
used to be able to have a conversation with somebody, and if they were of two differing spectrums of opinion, you
Right.
could find out from one person what they thought was beneficial, and then you give your opinion about what you think is beneficial, and then the two of you either agree politely to disagree or come to some kind of compromise and say, oh yeah, I can see both sides of it, let's move forward like this. Nowadays all that seems to happen is just, I'm right. No, I don't care what you say. No, look, there's so many other people on Twitter who
Yeah.
think I'm right. I'm just right. Let's just go with my opinion. Yes, thank you. Okay, goodbye. It's like, what is
Yeah.
that?
Not to go off on too big of a tangent, but I think I mean
Did I go off on too much of a
interactivity.
tangent, Waffle? I'm sorry. Did I take
No,
the wrong direction? I'm sorry.
no, because I mean it's kind of almost pertinent to the idea of comic book culture gaining sway. Is just because I think the internet and social media and stuff can be it's a mixed bag. It's a double-edged sword.
Yeah, it is.
There's good and bad things about um people being able to communicate more. You can communicate good stuff more, and you can communicate bad stuff more.
Yeah.
Like it's it's kind of like
it's always gonna be that case, especially with the
Right.
now with the internet. Is like you're gonna
Depends
take the
on
good and
who's got the
bad.
megaphone. It's um there's good and bad things. On one hand, all the cool shit that I like comic book stuff and anime and stuff like that has become more popular than ever. On the other hand, all the terrible opinions in the world have become more popular than ever. So
Yeah.
it's like
Or easier to
I,
express and easier to get out there, just in
right,
general. Like,
exactly.
it's
Yep.
just I think it's easier to I think as well, just following on from what Bran said as well, it's easier to get out there misinformation as well at the moment,
Mhm.
and it's like the wrong thing that people can very easily believe in,
Yeah, like
which is
opinions on comic books.
exactly exactly, or like
Or movies.
conspiracy theories about why a movie isn't being released. It's like, okay, it's not woke culture, guys. It's all
Yeah.
it's one of those things. But yeah, I
But
I
yeah,
don't
I
know.
mean, it's so funny. Like you even go into the Reddits for
oh, it's gonna talk about
comics
Reddit.
and stuff like that. But like you get deep into like there's people just arguing over the internet about comic
Yeah,
book lore and things like that. And even those guys can't and there's unpopular opinions there that are
yep,
like gaining weight and traction and stuff like that. And it's
yeah.
just
So
the rabbit hole just never
there's,
stops.
there's no way Sentry would be able to beat Superman. His power levels are not high enough at all.
Yeah,
No.
exactly. That kind of stuff. Like nerd arguments, but like on a much bigger level than they've ever been in the history of humanity.
Yeah. The
It's so funny.
the ultimate contest of nerd battles. That's what
Yeah.
we want to see. But yeah. But no, I mean, the internet's like, I mean, it's been a hell of a like we wouldn't be talking if it didn't exist.
Right, this podcast would not exist.
No,
so,
not one bit.
I mean,
You know, I would not have met you, Waffles, through Twitch.
yeah,
None of
I
this.
would not have met Bran either.
The
So
world would be. I would not have met my wife actually if it wasn't for the internet. So yes, it's the world is
yeah,
a well, at least for me, it's a better place. But yeah,
yeah. Like I said,
For the-
double-edged sword. It's
for the
like
for the rest of us, we had to meet Waffles, and it's become worse ever since then.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You're welcome. Yes.
Got a wife, met Waffles.
Yeah, the
Which
bad-
one? Unfortunately,
The
I don't have
scales
that.
even out somehow.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have that scale, so it's always take the
It's
bad of
just-
the Waffles.
Yeah, lowering on the wrong side
Yeah.
all the time. Every podcast you do with
every
me.
every podcast, every day we speak. Yeah, it just gets worse and worse and worse.
It's all right, it'll get better soon, Bran. Just remember when you clarify him with the FNAF.
Yeah, there we go.
the FNAF top,
Yeah.
it'll work out.
Just,
It'll work out.
just give him the
But
heart
yeah.
attack of his life when
So,
So-
were you a Batman boy growing up then, Waffles, or were you more of a Spider-Man boy?
I was a big Batman boy because the old cartoons, the very old like like
The animated series.
which
right?
cartoon was it where like there's like a 10-second long segment of just the Batmobile going down a like a long tunnel and
Yeah,
there's
it's
just
the-
lights flashing over it.
Yeah, Batman the animated series. Yeah, it's
Yeah, the 90s one, not the
Yes.
old Batman, but the
I think
90s one.
yeah, when you say Batman the animated series, I think most people will just think of that one because it is the
Yeah.
quintessential Batman animation.
Yeah, when he got the gruff, the voice
Yeah.
and stuff like that. That's really, and then what really changed it is because I was such a big video game boy when I was growing up. I didn't have comics, I had video games, and I played so many damn video games. Like I was obsessed to an extent that my parents were like, "You need to stop playing video
You need
games."
to
I was
stop,
like,
dude.
"Never."
The PlayStation ruined my education. I will say that.
I had the Ninja Turtles video game, which I never stopped playing. I played that all the time. And I never beat it because video games were impossible back in the day.
They were impossible back in the day. What the
so-
hell? Like I don't get. I have a theory about this. Go on, finish your story. I have got a theory.
I
about
want to
that.
name the second video game I played, which was even more impossible, the Batman video game. I could not beat like the first level of that game, and it wasn't for lack of trying.
Is that the Batman '89, the movie one, or is that the which Batman video game is this?
The video game itself had that 10-second reel of the Batmobile
okay,
going
so it was
through the
actual
tunnel.
oh god, okay.
It was
All right,
based
all
off
right.
of the animated series, and it was incredibly difficult. You had batarangs, you had a few of the classic Batman
And that's
stuff,
it.
but
Just Batarangs. that's it.
99% of the
It was-
combat was batarangs.
It was budget Batman. He just had Batarangs.
Pretty
Try to
much.
say that quick.
You had a
Um,
punch and you had batarangs, and
Yeah.
that was it. And it was
Batarangs
just
and boots.
so difficult. But like, I freaking loved it. I loved getting my ass handed to me by the random mobs that I would run into in that game. And I don't know, you'd see something in a video game and suddenly it'd be really cool to you. I would see Batman in my game, and then I would see them in the series, and then I would be like, this is the coolest thing ever. Batman is awesome.
Batman is awesome though. Batman is
I mean,
awesome.
he was
And
he was
hey,
he was so cool.
Hey, it could happen.
It could happen.
Enough money
I
out
always
there,
loved
guys.
that
It could
aspect
happen.
too, where it wasn't so far out of the realm of possibility. Like, I think to a certain extent, everybody can like, at least see how it may happen. A billionaire with too much money suddenly
The logistics of
becomes a vigilante.
Yeah, I mean the logistics of a real world government situation allowing a vigilante to run around cities,
mean,
and cause mass property damage.
Yeah.
Probably very unlikely.
Probably.
However, it could
Elon
happen.
Musk suddenly went a different direction.
Surely, surely he'd be a villain. Surely, that's like Lex Luthor territory. That is. That's not. It's not Batman
I will
territory.
launch the space program,
When he
and
goes-
then
when-
my infinite space power. will
when
be
Elon Musk when
matched.
he goes bold, then you know we've got some problems. Because that's when he's moving into Lex Luthor territory.
I mean, he knows where to start with like Twitter and social media.
Exactly. He's already doing it. He's got his propaganda machine going already. It's great. There you go. He's
Oh man,
sorted
I
it.
choked on my drink. I was laughing too hard.
I did just want to ask, right? So yeah, so I recently bought a Switch, and part of the Switch deal is that you can sign up to the online system and you get access to all the old school Nintendo games. So you get a lot of old school NES and regular games, right? And
Yep,
like they were they're so hard. They are
impossible.
so hard. I was playing Earthworm Jim and I got to like level 3 and I cannot get past it. And I don't know whether it's just because like, I'm getting older and my
Earthworm
reaction
Jim.
time is terrible.
Oh, that's a classic.
It is a
yeah.
classic. But like
Classic
my
pain in my butt.
my theory is that a lot of these games used to be, because obviously they used to make a ton of money in the arcades like back in the day, and they'd make that money by just kids dumping quarters in. So they made it extremely difficult so that kids would just pump quarters in, and then they ported it onto a home console to be like, oh yeah,
And
don't
they
worry about
kept
changing it.
They
It's fine.
kept it
Just do that.
just as difficult. Yep.
It's a nightmare. It's an
Yeah.
absolute nightmare. It drives me crazy.
Well, I think a lot of it also is getting the most out of your very little resources you had. You have, so many art assets, so many pixels that you can put into the
Oh, that is
game,
true.
into the cartridge. And you're gonna get a lot more out of that if people are dying constantly. I mean, it was such a big thing. Like if you beat a game, right, you would like take a picture of your screen and show it off to all your friends, like, I beat the game, I did it, yeah. And you
I mean,
just go around and like parade it to everybody.
Yeah, they used to be
Um,
literally. I mean, the old school competitions of like beating the high scores on Pac-Man and Mario. Those were the
Yeah.
those were achievements, big time achievements. Now there's like literal competitions for
Yeah, see
Counter
who can beat
Strike.
it fastest.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It's crazy. It's like,
Yeah.
oh man, the world has changed so much.
Yeah,
So,
and I
so much.
remember actually a lot of my comic book, bringing it back around to comics and stuff like that. A lot of my comic book knowledge came from video games. That's what really ultimately drew me in. I mentioned the Spider-Man games before, the Spider games.
Spider
Spider
games.
games.
I mentioned the Spider games. Where me and my friend would always, it was a co-op game, and I would go to my friend's house and he had the Spider-Man video game.
Yeah.
He would always, because he owned the game, he would get to pick first character, and it was always Venom. And I would always resent him for being able to pick the clearly better character because they put way more effort into Venom than Spider-Man.
Venom's cool though. Venom's a cool character.
Yeah.
I assume you have no idea who Venom is, Bran.
No, I know.
Oh, there you go. Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, Venom is yeah, it's funny you say that because I'm also, that's also a similar way for me in the terms of kind of like, I had the Batman Forever game, Waffles,
Yeah.
like the
Oh
literal
wow.
game
Yeah.
of Batman Forever, and it was, I mean, in hindsight, it was dog shit. However, it was
What was
like
it
at the
for?
time,
What console was it for?
well, it was called the Mega Drive over here, but it's the Genesis over in the States.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's all like they did that weird mocap where it's like they get actors in, clearly not the real actors who were in the film, but people dressed up in the outfits, and then they're doing that weird kind of like Mortal Kombat, like punching air kind of side of
Yep.
things, and then like strange leg sweeps that just don't make any sense. And God, it was just so, like, I mean, bollock hard, but like it got me genuinely.
It works in Mortal Kombat because you just got two characters on the screen.
Exactly.
But as soon as you try and put it into like the context of like a game where you're like constantly moving around, and stuff
so
like
it's rolling
that,
along,
it gets
and then
really weird.
you can't see like a train coming at you and stuff.
Right,
And you have to
yeah.
immediately dodge. Yeah, it was. But like that's, you're right. It like the bleed through into like different mediums has definitely helped my comic book knowledge. I mean, I remember the first comic I ever read, like all the way through, was something I shouldn't have read when I was younger, which was, this sounds weird. I started that sentence very strangely. It's fine.
I shouldn't have
It's
read
not-
this
yeah,
when I was a
like,
kid.
Right. I appear to have found some erotic literature. I read it was a crossover of Batman versus Predator. So the horror movie
Oh
icon
yeah,
Predator, and
yeah.
the book Batman vs Predator is amazing. And I remember reading it in a like in a general it's Waterston's over here. It's a bookstore, so kind of similar to like Barnes and Noble that you guys have in the States and stuff.
Right.
And
The
I
place
remember
nobody goes
reading it.
anymore.
Like my dad would go in there to buy like school books for like because he was a teacher, and then I would just nip off to the comic
And
section,
yep,
and I was just like,
exactly. Just be gone.
Batman's so cool. um, and that was my
Yep.
first like introduction. It was just kind of like hyper violent, but also just
You
really
go
cool.
over to the video game guides section.
Yeah.
There's a whole section in Barnes and Noble for video game guides.
Oh my
and I would
god!
just
Do you
go there
remember
and
when they had the books? When there was like
Yeah.
actual books? I know. It's so
Yeah.
weird. Oh god, I remember that day. I remember like,
Nintendo
geez.
Power and stuff
Yeah.
like that. You just be like,
Oh wow.
must
Grand
get
Theft
all the
Auto San
information I can.
Grand Theft Auto San Andreas has just come out. I'm gonna get the official guide that goes along with it.
Yeah, that was a big thing.
Welcome to the world before the internet.
Yeah.
Those poor trees that were made into those books, needlessly wasted.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I was just
No, I appreciate
living the
it.
nostalgia.
I know. We have to like Waffles. We're gonna have to do like just an old man podcast where you and I go through things from the 90s and just be like, I remember the day.
Back in my day.
Pepperidge Farm remembers.
Pepperidge Farm remembers. Bran doesn't even know that commercial.
I don't think I know
Bran
the
has no
commercial, but
idea.
I do know there was something around that. I do.
But well, I'm curious. So Bran, your perspective on comic books was you just were never interested in general. Was it just because you hadn't been? Because I know you're a pretty
Indoctrinated.
open-minded dude. Like, well, the reason I love doing the WaffleBran podcast is because Bran
No,
is
I'm very close-minded. Screw you. I hate anything you like.
Screw
Waffles.
you! I'm leaving this podcast right now.
This is my retirement of doing this podcast. By the way.
I mean, you work for like U2s and stuff like that. Like, you're a pretty open-minded dude. But you just never had an interest in comics. Is that because
like
superheroes are like super unrealistic
it's
to
hard
you?
for
Or
like
just...
it's not that I'm like ever closed-minded. Like I'm always open-minded to a bunch of different things. Like I'm never gonna say, oh, that thing sucks or is like bad. I may not enjoy it, and that's part of the thing. Is just it's not something that I've always enjoyed. Like anime before was not always something I enjoyed. Movies aren't something that I'll enjoy. It doesn't mean I'm not going to watch one if I see one that piques my interest.
And now we had a whole podcast where you talked about anime.
Yeah, exactly.
For 2 hours, yeah.
Yeah, and
I'm curious. Would it be if? So I guess that's kind of where I was leading earlier on with the games question. It's like, would you be? Is it just kind of like a film thing that you're not? Like kind of like I'm not saying you're against it or anything like that, it's just not interested you, but like would you be open to like playing like a game or watching like an animated version of like a hero, for example?
I mean, like, I would watch one or I would play a game. It's just like I'm not like most of the time it's like if someone like the movies like I got dragged to, my friends brought me to it and I was like, all right, sure, why not? It's a chance to hang out with friends. So if like someone's like sitting me down like, all right, I want to watch this with you, and it's just like, well, I don't know. Like I'd be hesitant at first, but it's like, no, I really want to watch this with you. I would. I wouldn't go on my own and go watch it for just because I feel like it. Or for games, like I'm not gonna spend like $90, which is what it costs Canadian.
Oh my god,
that's what it costs Canadians.
I mean, like, that's another in my day. Like I remember when games were like 30 quid, and now like £30. Which is like what 50 60 Canadian dollars, and now it's like £60 over here, so it's like 90 over there. It's insane. Like it's like, what is going on? Again, that's another like inflated.
It's a barrier to entry kind of on a thing, but yeah, that's like one of the reasons. Like, I'm not gonna spend. I'm not gonna spend $90 on a game that I don't really care about the stuff for.
I'm
like,
not. Yeah.
If someone like if there was something and someone gifted to me, all right, sure, I will try it. I won't let it sit around. Like if someone's like, I really want you to try this, here, I'll get it for you. Like I would try it. It's not like I'm against trying it or anything. It's just I'm not gonna go out there and either spend my own time on my own watching this thing because that I'm gonna end up either forwarding through because I don't care enough for it, or just like not wanting to do in the first place, or spend 90 of my own dollars for something that I don't care too much about. Like,
So
but
what I am now predicting is you receiving a bunch of gifted games on Steam,
Right.
or
Yeah.
about Spider-Man or Batman Arkham
Yeah.
series, and then swiftly followed by Waffles showing you the anime Batman Ninja.
Yes.
the
you
games,
know.
the games may not happen. The Waffles approaching me may that I can see it more happening. The games
If
probably won't
anybody could
happen.
do it, it's my responsibility to get Bran into.
I know. I'm
all
almost
the
tempted to
comic book
friend
stuff.
you, Bran, on Steam just to send you Arkham Asylum because it's the greatest. It's
And
one of
that's
the
why my
greatest
It is
games
Steam.
ever
really good
made.
game.
That's why my Steam list
Amazing.
is very small.
Wow. All right. Okay. Yeah. He's putting the barriers up already, Waffles. I can see it. But, yeah.
Please no. Please don't introduce me to new things.
All right, Waffles. I'm gonna
So
ask
much-
you this then. So, and then your this is a really difficult question.
I'm it. Hit me. Bring it on.
Your
I'm ready.
favorite and what you consider the best comic book video game ever.
Oh, comic book video game. I mean,
And then Bran, I'll just ask you what your favorite video game is afterwards because I don't know what that is. So
nostalgia-wise, the Ninja Turtles and TMNT video game for an NES was my. As a child, like I played that nonstop. I couldn't stop playing it. I loved it. Ninja Turtles will always be my favorite childhood heroes. I love that they're still going on today. I
Yeah.
love that I can go to my nephew and he's like, he can name off all the Ninja Turtles and he knows everything about Shredder and the Foot Clan. And I'm
I was
like,
gonna say, have you
yes,
played?
there's hope for the future.
Yeah, have you played Shredder's Revenge, the one that came out recently?
No, I haven't, and I'm kicking
Dude!
myself for it. I know.
Oh my god,
I know.
it's amazing.
It's got the old school theme and everything.
Yes!
It goes dun 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 dun
Yeah.
dun 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 dun.
It's got it's literally like the new version of the old school. It's so
I
good.
want to find Gentlemanly. You down for a stream at some point?
Yes,
Or-
dude, you and I
where
have
we
talked about
both
this
play
already. I'm like, let's start off with
Let's
Turtles and
do it.
end on
I would
Barrow Trauma or
love
whatever
that.
it is.
Oh my god, yes. I mean, because Turtles in Time was like
Oh, Turtles
the
in Time is amazing.
quintessential video
Yes.
game for me. I played
Yeah.
that
Yeah, but again, that annoys me because they've
so much.
they've redone that Cowabunga Classics and they've just like
Yeah.
basically taken an old game and slapped a price tag on it now. And it's like, no,
Pretty
man,
much,
come
yeah.
on. Bran, what is your? I'm curious what your favorite game of all time is, Bran.
Of all time, oh god.
Well, okay, just your favorite. I mean, what's the one that sticks out in your brain
Spill
as
a bunch
like
of water
I would
on
play
my
it
lap.
alone?
Give me a second.
When I would
Waffles.
play it
My my drink is leaking. Sorry. Give me a
Sure, your
second.
drink. We haven't had a toilet break. I get it. It's okay. It's fine.
Waffles is
Spilled a
leaking,
bunch of
everybody.
water. You can
Just
literally
so that
see it.
everybody knows,
I went to go
Waffles
take
is
a sip of
leaking.
water and like half the water.
that
just
happened
came
earlier
out of my
on?
bottle.
That happened to you earlier. I noticed that happened
Yeah.
earlier as well.
Yeah, it's leaking. This water bottle is not up to code.
Who
I need to
goes
get
in
a
here?
new one desperately. Oh my
If
god.
anyone wants to gift Waffles is on his
Every
throw.
time
he needs a
Every time I
new
take a
water
sip, I'm just gonna hold like a cloth underneath me. And just be
So
like,
graceful, and and elegant.
delicious.
Bran, what's your favorite game? I'm curious.
bottle. Okay. I change so often in my games because it's whatever I'm into. Sticking out right now would probably be if I'm going kind of single player, Red Dead Redemption 2. I really enjoyed playing that. That was a lot of fun.
Yes. I played all of that.
Me and Waffles and Sugar are all playing Hunt right now, which is fun. I was
right.
Competitive games, yeah.
I was in a
stuff like
Rainbow
that.
Six Siege. That was I grinded that for like
What?
2
You
a
in
year and
Rainbow
two.
Six Siege? What?
Stopped playing it as much now, but I grinded that like a lot for like a year or two and a year and a half. So that's definitely
Nice.
something that sticks out.
Very nice.
The old Call of Duty series is definitely things that stick out to me. I loved when especially when I was younger when I first started gaming. I loved the original Black Ops.
Oh, okay.
Call of
Black
Duty
Ops,
Black,
cool.
the original one. That was something else.
Yeah, Modern Warfare is like
Yeah,
still.
so
when I was
more into,
growing up,
like,
oh,
I am
the
definitely an
competitive
FPS player.
and fighting other players and things like that.
Well, it was more like
Um,
I didn't play
it's a good
multiplayer.
single player though.
I didn't. Yeah, I was gonna say I didn't play Call of Duty
Red Dead
multiplayer
is-
that much. I played a lot of single player on that one. I loved running through the campaign. Red Dead Redemption 2. I haven't really actually played the online version. I just go through the gone through the campaign a few times, and I've also modded the shit out of it
A
as
few
well.
times. You
A
went through
few
the whole
times?
campaign a few
A couple,
times.
okay, a couple times. I've done it through a
It
couple
took me
times. and
More
I'm
than once.
I've done it more than
like
once.
4.5 months to finish
Dang,
RDR2.
man.
It's like I agree with you
Yeah.
100%. Like RDR2 is like a masterpiece. It's absolutely
Yeah.
insane.
I've done
beat
it a
that
couple
game and
times.
I was
I-
like,
I've-
well, I'm done touching this
Well-
for a long time.
Well,
because
here's
I just-
the thing that what I did. I ran through it once to get to because I knew what I like, and this is more recently. Like I didn't get it when it came out. Like I actually got it more recently, because I didn't feel like buying it at the time, and now that I had more time a little bit, I was like, all right, I'll buy it. So like, and this was like probably, I don't know, probably about half a year ago or more. But I got it more recently and I played it. I was like, oh yeah, I'll play it. I knew the general idea of it. I didn't know the whole story or anything. So I played it and I was like, all right, this was fun. Got through the entire story, was whatever. I'm like, all right, cool. Still fun. And I was like, all right, I'm going to run it back at some point. And I was like, but I'm going to do it with mods. So I ran it back with mods, and it was so I tried a bunch of stupid things, and I ran it back with mods. So I modded the crap out of it and did it. And I sometimes get back onto it when I'm bored as well and play around the mods, and it's fun because I like the idea of just modding the crap out of it and doing random crap with it because it allows you to do so.
Yeah,
I
sadly,
loved
we're
that game.
Yeah, I
until
love
it got
RDR2.
real.
Right,
Until it
no
got
kidding, right?
really.
Oh
No
my God.
spoilers for anybody who hasn't played the game, but I loved the game until it got really real, really fast.
I mean, I
and
will
I was
say
like,
this,
oh
that-
god.
that's another thing about comic book movies that we'll just go back to as well, just slightly, is that spoilers, that's a ridiculous thing that's come out of that. It's like, when is the embargo for a spoiler? Because like we're talking about
Right.
Red Dead Redemption, which came out in 2018, was it? 2019?
Right.
Like it's,
Somewhere like
it's
that.
5 years old. You know, it's pre-pandemic, right? That RDR2 came out. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
even today,
It's
I'll
like-
still see like
I-
TikToks randomly about Red
I'm
Dead
s-
Redemption 2.
I'm
and-
sorry
I'm
to
watching
break it
YouTube
to any-
videos. So I got my recommendations filled
Mhm.
with it.
I'm sorry to
Yeah.
break it to anyone out there, right? But the spoiler embargo is lifted after 5 years, so I think we're safe to talk about it. You
Statute
know?
of limitations has
you know,
for
when-
spoilers. has
So if there's
been
anyone listening,
passed.
yeah, if you don't want to know what happens in a 5-year-old game, then close your ears now.
Yeah, fair.
When
Fair
Arthur,
enough.
when Arthur gets sick and is
Yeah.
like, you know, that. Oh my God, that is brutal.
Yeah,
like it's
I
absolutely
loved
tough
the games
gameplay,
up
too.
until that point.
That
I
game
was
is-
just
it is
like,
That gameplay's tough, especially because it's just
Yeah.
like it now like physically decreases anything you can do. It's just like yeah, you
Yeah.
can't do this, you can't do that. You're gonna choke a lot of times just because Arthur's coughing just a shit ton because he's fucking
Yeah.
sick.
yeah, when you're in the middle of a firefight and Arthur starts going,
Yeah.
I'm just like, please, dying
Yeah.
man, please get
so much
get
about
up
that
and
game.
shoot.
You
these
want to
guys
heal?
in the face."
Nope, because he's sick. It's like, oh,
So
God.
even after that, when you start as
Bran?
Marston,
Yeah.
like yeah, and it's like, and knowing what happens in RDR1, and it's just like, oh man, this is really tragic watching him putting all this effort when you know that, spoiler alert, guys, he's gonna get gunned down in the first one. You know, it's
Well,
like,
Yeah.
dude.
I think again, if you're talking about spoilers, if you don't know what the story of RDR1 is, that one's so old. I think
Yeah.
Yeah,
that one's
Right,
about
that
goes
one's
out
really
the
old.
door.
Exactly.
but like I almost hated that it was a prequel because I kind of knew everything that was. I was like, this isn't gonna end well.
So,
Yeah.
so
this is
I
gonna
think
be a
that's
bad.
that's
time.
what made it better for me is that I didn't play RDR1. I only
Yeah.
played RDR2,
Oh, nice. You
R2,
went straight. Okay.
and I also didn't know the full story of it. Like even though it's 5 years old,
Yeah.
I've watched like some gameplay of it without spoilers though, and so I didn't know a lot, barely anything going into it. So I was getting pretty much the full experience of Arthur Morgan without knowing what RDR1 came out with.
Okay.
Waffles, did you ever
Okay.
play
Arthur Morgan versus John
Marston?
John Marston. Which one? If you had to choose which character?
Oh, Arthur.
Who's
I
your
was gonna say
favorite?
Arthur's for sure.
Yeah,
Arthur.
100%.
100%. Such a much more defined character. I
Yeah,
love him so
I don't know
much.
why that was necessarily, but I maybe it's just slightly different writing, I guess. But did you ever play Red Dead Revolver?
Yeah, the old school
Very, very
one.
old school. Yeah, I don't know
Yeah.
if that. I
It
don't
was
know
like
how
on
that is
GameCube,
connected
I
up.
think.
Xbox, I think it was Xbox and PlayStation 2. I think
Was it?
originally.
Yeah, something
I
like
think so.
that era of games.
Yes,
Yeah, I
very much
remember
that
playing
era.
that. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's just sad to me that whenever like the Rockstars. This is going way off on a tangent away from comic books, but hey, we're in
Yeah.
computer games. So let's why not? It's
This
fine.
is what happens on
Um,
this podcast.
yeah, it makes me so sad that like we will probably like there will probably never be anything like RDR2 again, and I'm extremely worried about the next Grand Theft Auto because of the houses leaving Rockstar and the company
Yeah.
just seeming to focus wholly on online GTA Online, and that's it. And it's like that's
And
I know
not
that makes
releasing
the
their game.
money, but
Well,
but it's
we can bring this around back to comics, right? Where they made, all these comics way back in the day. They made, the comics were around for a very long time, and they hit lows. Things, uh, they hit their popularity, and then they dropped off and stopped being popular, and suddenly like there's resurgences of this kind of stuff. So like, it's
I
it's
yeah
kind of,
uh,
yeah, there
yeah.
might be not be the exact same thing, but
Well, yeah, I mean, from a point so, like, I mean, Rockstar was, would consistently come out with, like, brilliant work, like, over a
yeah,
span of, like, 10 years from, like, GTA 3 to, like, uh, arguably GTA 5 or RDR2. Like, it was
RDR2,
just
I think was their last
consistently
one. Yeah.
amazing, and the consistent factor in that was, how that, like, Dan Houser's writing,
Mhm.
and the way the company was run, and that's not going to happen
That's not
anymore.
gonna be a thing anymore.
Yeah,
Yeah, but like just everything, there will be somebody probably to carry on the legacy in the future. Maybe not in the direct future.
true.
But if there was somebody who liked something, somebody's gonna capitalize it on it in the
Yeah.
Yeah,
future. It's
Well, we'll
gonna
see, because
happen. It
it's
happened with
never going to be
comic
always the
books.
same. Like always, like
I mean, it won't be
everything's.
the exact same, but
Also, I'll stop you right
just like
there.
we
Well,
love the new Marvel movies and the new Batmans and stuff like that. Yeah, it's not the exact same as the old comic books, but one, still really enjoyed, the Dark Knight and stuff like that, even though it's pretty much completely different than from the Batman we knew from back in the day as the
I,
comic
I'm
version.
gonna
to a
pause you right
point.
there. Just also, hi Yuki. Thank you for the raid, by the way. Hello,
Oh,
everybody.
hi Yuki. Oh, I didn't see Yuki there. Hi Yuki.
So thank you for the raid. I just
We're talking about comic books. Hello.
Right, yeah,
we're
Red Dead
trying to. We'll
Redemption.
see.
We're maybe talking slightly about comic books at some point in this podcast.
At the beginning.
No,
Well, no.
we've been fairly consistent on it. It's only the last like
We
10
have.
minutes.
Well, no, it's been like the first like 20 minutes or like first like 10, 15 minutes that we didn't, and then
Yeah.
the rest of it we have, and the last 10 minutes we really haven't. So like the
last
in
10
between
minutes
we were doing pretty well.
Red Dead Redemption
Preamble.
2 is okay. Okay, I'll bring it back around. Is there any popular Western comic book heroes? Like, I don't.
Yes,
I
Jonah Hex.
Gentlemanly, you would know.
Yeah, there's a character called Jonah Hex who's he's I know, but I don't know if that makes sense. I know very little of him. He's basically like a gunslinger. They did a movie with Josh Brolin was Jonah
Yeah, I'm
Hex.
looking it up right now.
And it was
2010
awful.
Jonah
It
Hex.
was awful. Absolutely terrible.
Josh Brolin, Megan Fox, John
Yeah.
Malkovich.
Oh yeah, the
Dang.
cast was amazing. The actual thing was terrible. But yeah, that's like one of the ones that I can think of where he's a gunslinger who technically is kind of a vigilante, and he's
She's-
DC based.
you would think that's like an easy target to hit is a Western themed superhero, right? Like people would love a dude with a revolver who like hits all of his shots and stuff like that. He's just really
that's
the most
yeah,
Texan ever.
that's basically Jonah. That is Jonah Hex. That is basically Jonah Hex. And then he's got like a disfigured face as well. Like half his face is kind of
How do you
a bit
fail
mangled
with
and
that?
stuff.
How do you not?
And he's
Because
kind
I
of
have no
mystical
idea
as
who
well. He's
Jonah
got like
Hex
mystical
is.
stuff. Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's any others. I'm looking at my wall of nerd books at the moment, which is over here, just trying to see if I can think of anything else. Yeah. It was Mr. Wild West. Fill in for me, yeah.
Oh, Well-
Yuki says this is helpful. I don't know many comic books. To be
I don't
honest."
either.
Well, you and Bran are in the same book. That's
I
almost kind
don't
of the
either.
point of this podcast is to kind of talk with someone who has no idea. We're essentially going with we've got Bran the novice
You're
comic
got a
book
point the other way.
person.
Got a point. You're not pointing.
Yeah,
Oh.
you're in the wrong. Yeah,
Wait,
there you
wait,
go.
Bran-
You're looking at the.
Bran the
Look at
novice.
look at
comic
OBS.
book
Look
person.
at OBS, and you can figure it out.
Yeah.
Okay, Bran is over
You're-
there.
Nope,
You're
other
over
way,
here.
other way.
And Bran's
Over
over
There you
here.
go.
there.
There you go.
Yes, Bran is over here. Bran, the novice comic book person. We got me, which is
Right, were you impressed that I got that first time, by the way?
I will say the journeyman, and then we've got Gentlemanly, which is the master comic
No,
book.
I wouldn't.
Nerd.
I wouldn't call myself a master, not a comic book nerd. I would not call myself that.
You
I know.
definitely have much more knowledge than both of us
Yeah,
combined.
I know a lot about like a lot of there's a lot
I mean,
of like
who pulls out?
non-mainstream.
Who pulls Jonah Hex?
But again, I know a lot about like. So this is the thing because it's a good conversation actually to have because I know a lot about mainstream like Marvel and DC work. So I know a lot of characters and I know a lot of like interlinking stories. I wouldn't say I'm super hot on the current stuff that's going on at the moment, but I know about it. But like there's a lot of other comic mediums, you know, like look at The Walking
Fair.
Dead. The Walking Dead is a perfect example of that. The Walking Dead started as a comic book. You know, it's
But you would say
before
you're
ever
above
being-
average, though. You know more about than the average.
Why, thank you, Bran. I would say
No
that.
way.
And whilst we're also talking about comic books, I would also agree.
Yeah, I mean there is other mediums, but they're definitely not like, you know, they're definitely not as well. I mean, there's like Star Wars comics too. Those are
What's
pretty.
what's above average? Waffles 4 inches, right? Above average, that is, yeah. Yeah. Definitely above average, right?
Waffles was trying to click.
Yeah, sure, why not?
Yeah,
Waffles was
sure.
clicking earlier
You know,
before
I would
stream,
say
so I don't know what he was.
2 inches, maybe.
That's what was clicking, Brian, was the tape measure as he was measuring.
Yeah.
That was what was the click to it.
Yeah, Waffles was doing a little bit of clicking earlier before stream, so we're
It was
closing all my
fantastic.
tabs now. We're just gonna. But
no, yeah. So this is the thing about comic books. It's like it's not just the. I mean, the mainstream of Marvel and DC is obviously the most well known and the most popularized. But
well, it's
there are
crazy
tons
that
of
you
other-
even call it mainstream, right?
well, there are
Like,
tons of other like comics that are not. They are popular, but they are not. Like look at like I said, look at Walking Dead. Look at Alan Moore is a great example. Like the comic writer Alan Moore has written surely some movies that probably you might know about as well. I say movies, written some comics that are then turned into movies. So Watchmen, for example, or V for Vendetta is another example of his
Yep.
work.
those
These are
the
not
really super dark ones.
well, they're not DC or Marvel. They're independent comics,
Yeah.
And they're some of the most popular comics of all time. And they're amazing. Like they're
I
absolutely
think
amazing.
The Mask. I remember looking this up
The
the other
Mask?
day. The Mask was originally a comic book.
Wait, keep talking.
The Mask was originally a comic book. I discovered this the other day when I was looking up information about The Mask and Jim Carrey and all that stuff.
Was it?
Originally, yes, and it was terrifying. Like the Mask comic book is a completely different character than the one you
is.
see in the
Yeah.
movie with
Yeah.
Jim Carrey.
100%.
It is something special. Oh man,
Hyper violent, I believe, is the is
Yes.
the term I would use. Yeah.
Yeah, if you ever want to be disturbed, look up the original Mask comic book, just images of
It's
the Mask comic book.
Yeah,
and
Doug-
it's
Doug Mankey was the guy who wrote it with another guy. I
insane.
can't remember. And yeah, he's quite a well-known comic book writer. Like he's worked
Yeah.
for Marvel and DC. And yeah, I know it is ridiculously violent.
It's
like
trippy, man.
crazy violent. But they're amazing. They're really, really
Yeah,
good.
I mean, just because
another thing that
DC
got
and
me into
Marvel
comics as
run
well.
the whole comic book universe doesn't mean there isn't other comic books. Yeah,
No, and like again, like the most popular one is I mean, arguably speaking, I mean, there's lots of popular ones, but like The Walking Dead is
Walking
you know,
Dead, Mask,
it's
um,
yeah. Well, yeah, it's not. I mean, Walking Dead is not a
Watchmen, got the new series that came out, I think, a few years ago. Um, not just the old movie that came out with Rorschach and stuff like that, but it got
oh,
a
don't
new
say old movie.
series.
That makes me feel really old. Don't say
I
old
mean, it
movie.
is at this point. I mean, the old Watchmen movie is pretty dang old at this
The
point.
TV series was fantastic, though. The
It
Watchmen
was like a
TV series was
Netflix series
great.
that just came out, and I started watching it, and I haven't finished it yet.
Was it
Uh,
Netflix? I don't think it was a Netflix series. Was it Watchmen?
I think it's the
It was.
one where the very first
It was
episode
no
there's
HBO.
raining squids, and
Yeah,
you're
the
like, "What is happening?"
yeah, with Jeremy Irons in it. With Jeremy Irons in it. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's the HBO one. Yeah, it's on
it's
HBO.
the oh,
That's
it's
it.
HBO.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
I
Oh man,
I watched that one and I was like,
I
people
love that
got
series.
so interesting
I
imaginations.
absolutely love the Watchmen series. Yeah, it was great. So yeah, I don't think. I mean, that's the thing about comic books. It's the same with anime, isn't it? Where it's like there's so many different aspects and so many different facets of it. It is interesting
Right.
to note that the the lines are kind of slight. I don't know of all the people who I kind of are in my friends group and that side of things. It's interesting what Bran was saying earlier on about not being really interested in comic books, but then are interested in anime because it is exactly the same for a lot of my friends. Zane is the
Yeah.
exception where it's like he likes both of it, but a lot of the times it's kind of like you're either into anime and you're not into comic books, or you're into comic books and you're not into anime.
And
And
then you got
there's it,
Waffles and Zane as well.
and then and
I
and then
just
you
love
got
everything,
and
yeah.
then you got
But
freaks like Waffles just
yeah,
into everything.
freaks to just watch whatever. How dare you, sir, be generally open to random shit.
Everything.
Unacceptable.
You
How
gotta
could
pick a
you?
side.
Not in this day and age. You've got to be close-minded to everything.
I think it's at this point though, it's you could come up with the same story in an anime as you could in a comic or
Oh yeah.
superhero story
Yeah,
or
100%.
any other, like, at this point they're just genres of they're not even
Yeah.
genres, they're just entire forms of media
Yeah, well, I
that,
think I
like,
think at the end of the day is you could do the exact same story like you were saying. It's just the way that it's either like made or kind of done is like there's a different style to them. Like although there may
yeah.
be the exact same story, there's a different style to them, and that's what people get.
Like, at this point, saying
Enjoy
I'm
or
into
not.
anime is like, yeah, I'm into watching cartoon shows. I'm into watching
Oh, yeah,
movies. It's
exactly.
like it's just its own thing now. And there's you're into specific types of anime or something like that. Like,
You're gonna get comments, Waffles. Whoa, boy.
I
Whoa,
mean,
boy.
people who watch
That
Naruto,
subreddit's gonna go crazy.
I don't watch the popular
Start a
ones. I
subreddit
watch
for
all the other
Waffles so
ones.
people can start complaining.
Like, Waffles for chumps goes against anime. Waffles for chumps
Waffles for
hates the
chumps
anime
hates
community.
anime.
Lumps us all in with the rest.
Lumps us all in the rest.
I'm gonna hear the headlines now.
I mean, but I'm not wrong, all right? Like it might as well just be its own
No, I agree.
section of media at this point.
Yeah.
Where comic books have just become such a mainstream. Like, you could, there's a lot of people who love Batman but hate every other superhero. It's like you just like what you like, and there's not really um I guess at this point, there's not really that much of a distinction between all these fantasy characters at this point. You could be someone who likes Naruto and Batman, but hates every other anime and every other comic book hero,
I
and
am
still be your own person.
Yeah, one thing I am curious about, right? Because again, this is coming at it from a non. I am not a huge anime fan, Again, not through any hatred of it or anything like that, just from a more naivety standpoint, and only seeing Akira and not seeing anything else really properly anime. Like the one always really cool thing about comic books was the idea that you would have all these superheroes that existed, well, certainly mainstream comics, I should say, all these heroes
Mhm.
that existed in the same universe, and they all had their own individual stories. And then every now and again, they would come together for like this big crossover event, that would be like this world-ending thing, and it needed all of them to come together, kind of stuff. And it was this like
Mhm.
huge arc that like happened over a period of time. Does that kind of thing happen in anime? Like, do you have these shared universes? Do you have like big like coming together I was about to say coming out parties. That sounds wrong. No, just like these like big coming togethers and like these huge
Not
adventures.
really.
Or
It's
did that
not
not
Well,
really
as
happen?
it's not as big in anime where
uh,
there's a lot of conjoined. There is crossovers and stuff like that.
I mean, that's the thing. It's like a lot of all of these are taking in different universes. That's the thing about anime is everything's a different story almost, and everything takes part in a different. If unless it falls under the same series, which would be just another season almost. Most of it is
Right.
like completely separated, is it not? You would say.
Yeah, usually for the most part they create their own universes. There's a lot of animes that are within the same universe, but they're usually titled after each other and stuff, and there's not like
Okay.
there's not a whole lot of crossover in a lot of these ones because Japan, I feel like they're definitely they're a lot more about making different art styles and different unique ideas and making them special as opposed to like a lot of the Marvel comics and DC comics look very similar and stuff like that. uh Anime, boy, it really depends on
You could
which
combine some
dude
series
you've got
together.
making that.
You could do a crossover with some of them, but I feel like a lot of
Yeah,
anime will not work together. Especially if you tried to cram a bunch of popular anime together,
right.
it just wouldn't ever work in a crossover because there's too many crossing lines.
Hmm.
Right. Okay. Okay.
I mean,
Interesting.
they're from. Here's the thing, like, and I'm gonna make probably a lot of anime and comic books from the same era. They are very similar. They popped up around the same time. They just took on different art forms because of the different cultures and stuff like that.
Well, yeah.
Um,
I mean, yeah. When was like anime manga like
when
originated?
was it? When did it
Oh
start to
God,
get
that's
No,
big?
like when did not even when it got big. When did it even start? Because like
well,
that's I mean,
that's a depends on your question because it depends because there's the different versions because there's the Japanese kind of style because it's been in Japanese kind of culture for a little while or a long while,
yeah.
so I'd say so. And it's only more recently integrated into North American culture where more people in North America have gotten into it. So if
Right.
you're talking about like how long animes exist in general, that's probably a long time.
Because
I mean,
that's the question. Because it was in my head. It was I kind of was under the impression that like anime manga was like an eastern side of like an eastern side of comics, if you will, and then the
mhm.
western version of comics was like almost like a bastardized version of that. So I was assuming that anime manga came first, and then
I think
for
you might
lack
be
of
right a little bit
a
on
better
that.
word, American stole it.
I think
um,
you actually might be a little because I know manga was
Apologies for
around
any
for
Americans watching.
like 100, 200 years, ago. Like it was around before the world
Oh,
wars and stuff like that.
It's a
It was
post-war.
it's a
yeah.
post-war thing. Interesting, because when was so Action Comics was well, there were like I know there were the
Well,
drips and
the
drabs of
recent
comics
it depends on
before.
what kind of
Um,
iteration of like I mean, they started coming out, manga has been around for a very long time. Maybe not in the way that we look at it today. It's like evolved just like everything does. But they came out with like the general idea of a cartoonish, or not cartoon, but like a drawn character going through panels of a story that's been
right,
around for a very long time in Japan. That has been around for a very. They definitely did not have the giant eyes, and like they were not what they look like today. But that idea has been around for a very long time, and I think I don't know when, and I don't know exactly the history between it, but uh Japanese did come out with the whole panel format before
okay,
Western audiences and stuff like that.
yeah. So
Panels were not a big thing for
yeah, because
Western for a while.
I said yeah, I don't know because Action Comics #1. So that is Superman basically the first superhero is Superman. That was in 1938. And that was the very first Action Comics.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's in a post anime. world,
But
as it were.
the cartoony style that we have with the big eyes
Oh yeah,
nowadays,
yeah, yeah.
when you generally think anime and stuff like that,
Oh yeah, that's
that was
100%.
all post-war. That was like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
they
Yeah.
saw all the superhero comics. I think some of the first popular ones were like Astro Boy and stuff like that.
Yes.
Very like originally they were based on superheroes. They were based on like people with powers and things like that doing
Mhm.
crazy shit and stuff. And it evolved from there, and they kind of so it's a little bit of back and forth between cultures, and it's kind of funny how like there's that give and take, and a lot of one side has influenced the other, has come around to this, and
Yeah, it's interesting because it's like, I mean, like what we define as comics and what we define as so like from my point of view. So this technically what I'm holding here is not a comic; it's a graphic novel because it's a
right.
collection of individual issues all together.
Yes, teach
And
us
like,
if we're on this subject, what is the difference between a comic and a graphic novel, Sir
so
Gentlemanly Game?
so a comic is a thing that is serialized issues that come out every week or so. A graphic novel is a collection of those comic stories all in one big form.
Oh,
Um, But it's that is my definition of it. Whether it's the correct definition or not, I don't know. But that is what I define as it.
probably a lot of
Um,
people would agree with you, I think.
or be raging at me on the subreddit.
Or that, yeah.
But
Welcome
there's
to the internet.
I mean,
Little bit
comic books.
both.
There's a load of like, just to kind of reemphasize the point that it's not all about superheroes and stuff like that. From from Brand's perspective as well, it's not just about crazy bombastic superheroes. And there's a really famous comic book graphic novel that was serialized in, like, I think it was 1980, and it was called Mouse, Maus, and it was about I don't want to make the subject super dark on this podcast. I'll keep it light, guys. I'll keep it light. But it was
I
basically about
mean,
the Holocaust. It was about it was Mouse, a survivor's tale, I think, was the subtitle to it. But it was
wow.
basically like this journey through Nazi Germany at the time, and it was like really seriously heavy subject matter, but it's in a comic book form, and it's lauded as one of the greatest comic books slash graphic novels ever made. If you look at like lists of comic book and graphic novel things to read, it always comes like towards the top. And it's not even a superhero story. It's nothing to do with superheroes or anything like that. So comics, I guess that in a way they are their own genre.
Yeah.
In the sense of like, it's not just all about
This is
crazy
how this media is
superheroes.
presented. It's
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. There's all kinds of different things. So you can like comics and not like superheroes.
right.
That's kind of what I'm trying to get to.
Like
There's
Walking
loads of different.
Dead, kind of, it's
Exactly, like The
very
Walking Dead.
much not a superhero comic.
Precisely. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's a pretty dark,
From
pretty
apocalyptic.
dark.
Yeah,
Yeah,
from Hell is another good example of that, which is another Alan Moore book, which is it's literally like the comic book version of Jack the Ripper, like the story of Jack the
right.
Ripper,
Okay, yeah.
in a comic form. There's loads of different stories
Well,
like that.
there's even like there's an anime of that one too. There's Hellboy,
Oh yeah,
which is
Hellboy.
like
Hellboy's another great example. That's a brilliant example of a comic book that is not technically, because it's not DC or Marvel, and it's
yeah.
like, yes, I guess he's kind of a superhero, but also like it's such a quirky offbeat. Mike Mignola did such a great job with Hellboy. Like, it's such an interesting
Well,
story.
there's also like I was referencing there's an anime Hellboy. Yes, also that is a great comic, but I was referencing there's an anime. Maybe I called it wrong. What was it called?
Because
Uh
because yeah, because like, I mean, Hellboy is the ultimate. That is if you look at subtext of like graphic novels and comics and what they represent, Hellboy is the ultimate discussion of nature versus nurture, because he is literally the inherent like child of the apocalypse, but because he's raised by good people, he then fights for the forces of good instead. It's like, it is the ultimate kind of like
I
story
meant
of.
Helsing when I was talking about.
Oh,
I mentioned that
Helsing.
because we were on the
Right.
topic of comics,
Wow.
and because my brain just got confused with like American comics versus anime and stuff like that. For
That's
some
a
reason, my brain went to Hellboy versus the anime Hellsing.
is that
Anyways,
I'm assuming Helsing's about the vampire hunter, right? I assume that's what
yeah,
that
it's a very 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 dark anime, but yeah, it's pretty much
that's a
about a
that,
dude who kills vampires, but he's pretty bad himself. He's not a
well,
good
yeah,
guy.
yeah, that's because that's based on because that's the guy who hunted Dracula in Bram Stoker's books.
Yeah.
It was Helsing.
That's probably been made into a comic, I'm sure. I'm sure somewhere there's a Van
And
Helsing.
a terrible movie as well with Hugh Jackman in it.
I remember that movie, and
Yeah,
I
it's
don't remember.
terrible.
I remember that movie, but I don't remember that movie, which probably means it was bad.
Richard Roxburgh hamming
When
it
you
up.
know
Like,
you watched the movie, but you can't remember a single detail from it,
yeah. Welcome
that's
to
when you
Bran
know it was
watching comic book movies. That's exactly what it is.
bad. Yeah.
I know I've seen it. I just don't remember
I
anything.
I know
about it.
I've seen
just don't
something of
remember
it, but
anything.
I don't
Yeah.
remember anything of it.
Well, okay, so what did you think of Guardians of the Galaxy? Not knowing anything about the Marvel universe or anything of that.
Oh, you're gonna ask him to try and
anything about
remember it
that.
now.
Yeah, I was gonna say. To be fair, this was like
Well,
7 years ago.
I mean, I feel like a lot of the characters were pretty like. It's hard to forget the talking raccoon and the tree who just says
Do you
Groot.
remember the most famous star of it, which was Chris Pratt's abs? Do you remember that?
No, not one bit.
Then, obviously you didn't take the core thing out of the film. Clearly, that's what
Yeah, you didn't.
That's
You
what
didn't
all the
catch
money
what they were
was.
looking for. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a shame.
I honestly, I like what. I mean, it was. I mean, action packed. I guess like that was like it's like cool. It's like you get these bursts of like action that kind of fill that kind of just want for something out of that kind of thing. But like
Right.
it wasn't much to, like for me. Like I couldn't take away too much from it in
If
terms of
we,
just oh yeah, it's a great story. Like it's an interesting story, but it's like I don't care as much to invest my time into it. I walked away probably thinking good movie. Probably not gonna watch it again. And
if we if I'm ever invited back on the show again, and I know it's looking tenuous, but if I'm ever invited back on the show again, like
it's okay. I'll kick
we
Waffles out.
we should
We'll edit
totally
this. We'll just edit them out of the whole.
we
thing.
should totally set up like Bran with like a watch one Marvel movie that slightly interests you beforehand, and then ask us like a bajillion questions about what
Yeah.
the hell was this? Like what is going on? Ridiculous. Like
Have you
make him
watched
watch
the most
last episode
random,
of Moon Knight or something, and just be
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
what?
the
is
most
any of
random
this?
movie, and you just ask about
Howard the Duck. Make you watch Howard the
Yeah,
Duck.
make
That
him
would be
watch
amazing.
Howard the Duck. I'm ready.
Oh, yeah.
God,
So thoughts, Brad?
yeah, I know. I don't think I'd be able to answer like half the things. I'd be like, I don't understand
Yeah.
everything, and this makes me want to die even more.
Yeah, I'll do the same thing, but with anime.
Yeah, exactly. Let's do one episode of me doing comics and one episode of you doing anime.
But I think
that-
the genre itself with superheroes in comics and like the popular ones like Marvel and DC is the draw is that it takes a regular story that you would have with just any sort of story you would have teen angst, romance, you know, good versus evil, blah blah blah. And it takes it and it just throws superpowers in there, and it just like it takes whatever basic generic story you would have and takes the character, gives them superpowers, and also has to deal with these things. And
Yeah.
I think that's the big draw is because in a way giving them um superpowers or giving them abilities and things like that um is more it's easier to draw the parallels to your own problems and things like that because they're just amplified by that much because you're a character who's got special abilities and stuff like that.
Yeah,
And
yeah. I mean, the majority of times that superheroes are like the most popular superheroes anyway, because there's a varying list of who's popular and who's not really when it comes
Mhm.
to it. And like, it's interesting that it's got to the point now where if you release a Marvel movie, it tends to boost the comic sales of that particular Marvel character now more than it does.
Yeah.
But like, look
Like
at the most popular.
I had never heard of Moon Knight before, that's for
There you
sure.
go,
I had
exactly.
no idea who that
But
character
like,
was.
look at the most popular characters, like Spider-Man is incredibly relatable. He's a kid who goes to high school, and he has problems with girls, and he's just trying to keep up his grades, and whilst also just happening to have the proportionate powers of a spider, and fight
Yeah.
crime. It's same with the X-Men. The X-Men are a great
Relatable.
example of that,
Relatable.
where it's like you go through you go through puberty, your body changes, everything changes, things are
Mhm.
happening, and you don't know how to control it. And it's like, well, that's the X-Men just on
Well,
a
yeah, and I mean, and it deals with themes of like
20 million.
suppression and oppression and things like that.
Exactly. Being a minority, what it's like to be
Yeah,
a
being a
minority and,
minority.
and,
Yeah,
and be persecuted. Yeah, it's, and these are like the most popular, characters. And obviously the
yeah,
thing that we're all very familiar with, which is, getting upset and turning into a giant 8 foot tall green monster.
yeah.
We're
Well,
all very
and that's
familiar
all
with that.
Marvel too. I think that's why Marvel took off a lot more than DC in general, was because a
Yes.
lot of DC was earlier when it was more about the fantasy of just having superpowers and like there's a
Yes.
person who could do awesome, cool things. And then
Again, though,
Marvel,
yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, you say that. You're right. You're 100% right, Waffles. Because the most popular DC character, arguably the most popular DC character, is the guy that we literally said earlier on. Yeah, it could happen. Billionaire Batman.
yeah.
True.
Yeah, exactly. And it takes those kind of like with DC, their flagship character was Superman, which was just a dude with a lot of powers. And
Yeah.
even then, like they had to give him weaknesses and stuff like that just to make it interesting because
Well, yeah.
at
Lol,
first like
Superman wins.
it's like cool, yeah, I wish I had a lot of cool powers, but you know uh, people don't want to just see someone kicking butt. They want to see something relatable. They want to see something like uh
My
somebody deal with tough decisions and stuff like that and just take a regular story and kind
my
of
partner hates Superman, like hates him with a passion, because she said he's such a loser that his friendship groups consist of his cousin, a dog, and a clone of himself.
Nice.
I mean, you're not wrong.
That is literally it. Supergirl,
By clone of
Crypto,
himself,
and Superboy.
you mean Bizarro, right?
No, I mean Superboy. Superboy
No,
is literally a clone of him, just a younger
his
version of
best
him.
friend Bizarro is Superman.
Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
Well, I have basically hit the 2-hour mark. So, Waffles, do you want to start wrapping this up then?
Yeah,
Brand's like, I'm done
so-
with this comic book.
Yeah,
Fact.
we're out.
Well,
He just ran
I
out.
screw this.
Yeah,
I
got
hated
nothing more
every
to talk
second of it.
about,
I
He's
just
like, I
like
got anime to watch. Let me get out of here quick.
no, that'd be Waffles. Waffles would you want to get out of here so he can watch both his anime and his comic
yeah,
books.
we watch a bunch of
At
anime
the same time,
and
one
Yeah.
eye
comic book
each,
movies.
just on. Yeah.
It's up to me. I've got to introduce Bran to superheroes and stuff. We're gonna watch The Dark Knight after this, I think.
Oh, he's
uh,
gonna have a whale of a time. Don't put him on
Have
the
you
dark.
ever, you never seen The Dark
Begins.
Knight, have you,
Start
Bran?
him on Batman Begins. And we've talked about this. He's not gonna know who Batman is.
He knows who Batman is. Yeah,
I don't know anything about Batman. Waffles.
Dark Knight is amazing. I would say that's Dark Knight and the I don't know. You remember the old Superman, not Superman, Spider-Man movies with
What you mean the thing
yeah,
behind me?
yeah, that.
No, what is that?
Wait.
Yeah, that
No
that,
clue
you
what
know
you're
that poster right there.
Like
That's
that?
also a big thing that got me into comics and stuff like that was the Spider-Man
Yeah.
movies. Nothing good started for
Wingy
it.
Maguire Spider-Man. Oh man, I
Yep.
love him. Yeah. Emo Maguire.
Okay, so Bran, what's your takeaway?
What's my
Are you
takeaway?
more
I'm
willing
still
to watch comic book
No-
movies.
nothing's
Dash?
changed.
Are you gonna watch Batman now?
Probably
No,
not.
nothing's changed.
No,
You're like,
nothing's
nothing's
changed.
changed.
No.
thing is,
Oh.
in fact, I am less willing to watch.
Yeah,
comics
I'm less willing because
ever before.
I think Waffles is gonna make me suffer more if I ever decide to watch it. So I gotta be more protective and
Oh,
closed
Bran,
off
you
to
gotta
it.
watch this.
I mean, if I'd have known that the ultimate objective of this was to make Bran watch a comic book movie, then I would have probably halfway through just set up some kind of DVR and put it on the screen. so that he's
DVR.
forced into it.
He's gonna set up the DVR.
It's our
Oh
whole
my God.
podcast is just
But,
watching
you
the
know,
movie.
It is what it is. But,
Well,
Man.
thank you, gentlemanly, for being
Yeah.
here. If you want to plug your social media and also your podcast, because if you enjoyed what you heard today about all the comic books and you want to hear more, Gentlemanly has his own podcast, which Waffles was on a couple of weeks ago, I believe, or a few weeks ago now, or about a month or whatever it has been. But you can check that out. I don't remember. I just was told that was happening. So I can't.
Sure, something happened.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I can't remember.
Bran,
but
I'm so like it wasn't anything personal. It was just between the two of you. I think he was more the comic book aficionado than you. So you know, I'm sorry, dude. Anytime you want to come on Undisputed Nerds, you're welcome.
And just give you a confusion reaction. Yeah, that's what exactly.
Bran's just there just to go like, huh?
Yeah,
what?
You could be our neutral audience. That's what.
There we go. But
is this? I don't care about any of this.
But like I said, if you enjoyed what you heard today and you want to hear more about comic books and everything, go check out Gentlemanly's podcast if you want to plug that now.
Sure. Yes. Hello, everyone. I'm Gentlemanlygamer. No. Yeah, you can find it. It's Undisputed Nerds. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you can find podcasts. Basically, go and check it out. Waffles. We did he mentioned.
Yeah, I had a blast on your podcast, man.
It was fun. We had a good time. We had a really good time.
It's you and Zane, and you guys talk about a bunch of generally nerdy stuff, comic books. For the most part,
this is great. I love it. I appreciate it. Yes. We try and we do a mix between like what is hot and what is not at the moment. So like we did Shazam review, for example, the last Shazam movie that just came out. But then, as I mentioned at the beginning of the top of the podcast, we talked this week, which is coming out on Monday, I believe. It's us versus AI. Oh, bye, Waffles.
Waffles is
bye. Apparently, my camera. You keep on plugging. I'm gonna fix it.
He's like, oh god, I'm sick of hearing about this guy.
Now Waffles is leaving.
Yeah. We talked about it was us versus an AI thing, so it's quite funny. It was a good show. I enjoyed it a lot. Other than that, you can find me on Twitch, twitch.tv/Gentlemanlygamer, where I stream every Tuesday and Thursday, and then I'm on the gram as well. So feel free to check me out. Or not. Do what you want with your life, really.
Starts taking off shirt.
Yeah.
OnlyFans too. Just checking.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, check out Undisputed Nerds. Thank you so much.
Yes, go check out their.
Thank you
for having me, guys. It's been a pleasure. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah. If you enjoyed what you heard,
next time let's talk about.
Oh no, keep going.
I was going to say next time let's talk about something that Bran can get in on as well, because I feel so bad.
No, it's okay. I got it. It was good.
This is what Bran lives for. Is just me talking about something he has no clue.
I'm listening most of the time. I got some input in there. I'm listening most of the time. Anyways, once again, thank you. If you guys did enjoy the podcast and you guys want to hear more, you can go check out more of our podcasts. If you want to go do that, you can find it at YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music as well under the name WaffleBran Podcast. Go check it out there. Go check out some of the old episodes as well. Especially if you didn't see the beginning of this one, go check it. Well, this will be uploaded tomorrow, which is going to be Sunday at 6 p.m. EST. Go check it out. Go rewatch it or listen to one of their any of the previous ones. Their Gentleman's link for his Undisputed podcast will be in the links description below, as well as his own social media. So go check those guys out. Once again, thank you so much for joining us for this week. It was a blast, even though I didn't know a lot about it. It was still a blast to input some of the stuff I could.
I always love it. It always makes it better to talk about when there's somebody who has no idea. You can just absolutely just go on and they're just like, oh my gosh, what is this new information that I've never been privy to before?
Switzerland of the conversation.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right.
Anyways,
thanks for having me, guys. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, everyone, for watching. Hopefully, you will join us not next week, but the week after. We do our podcast bi-weekly live at twitch.tv/waffles4chumps, and then we post it every Sunday right after our podcast at 6 p.m. EST, and you'll find it all at the websites mentioned earlier. Take care, everyone. Hope you guys see you guys later. Have fun. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys. Bye.